Welcome in, SMITE fans, to the Road to Worlds playoffs. It's day 2, and inbound, we are sending some teams to the World Championship today. You've got Frog, you've got inbound on the desk, and you've got some great SMITE action coming at you today. A ton of matchups that we've seen throughout the season. We saw some exciting ones yesterday. I think we're going to see some even more exciting ones today. But it's a little bit of a complicated format. We can take a look and see how we're sort of looking for this tournament in particular. All matches best of 5, similar to the Road to World season. The top 4 teams qualify through to the SMITE World Championship. That's 2 from today and 2 from tomorrow. Those bottom 2 teams, they're going to head off to the qualifier. Head off to the qualifier a little bit later on in January, but those top 4 that qualify through this weekend are going to be able to pick those 4 teams from the qualifier later on. Number 1 seed will choose any qualified team from those group stages to play. Number 2 seed will choose their next choice after that. Number 3 seed, number 4 seed, and so on. And then we will form our Worlds bracket all the way in January. But for right now, when we're looking for those teams to qualify, these 2 matchups are important today. Styx Ferrymen versus the Jade Dragons to start us off, and then the Warriors versus the Leviathans. Some good matches today inbound.
Yeah, I mean, these have been the top 4 teams since the end of that second phase, and we finally figure out who's going to be that second team going to Worlds. And I mean, this is the most important game of the year so far.
Yep.
This brings you into Worlds, and if you lose, as you said, you're going to have to go through the playoffs in January against SOC, SEC. And, I mean, I guess we could talk about Zapman and those. He's been through those before. It's not like the end of the world, but it is something you kind of want to avoid, just to be able to choose the team.
No, yeah, it's not. It's not, and that's a good point, right? We'll call it, like, tomorrow we have some elimination matches, and that, you go to the group stage. But, of course, we have seen, I mean, last year we saw 2 SEC teams at Worlds. We've seen players win Worlds through that bracket, so certainly nothing off the table just yet. But, man, it would feel a whole lot better just to seal your ticket this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be able to choose the team you're playing against also. There's going to be weaker teams making it through. There's going to be stronger teams making it through. If you get to choose the team that you look for, you can match up against, like, a worse team or a team you're just going to match up better than. So stuff like that, it's definitely something to highlight.
Our first matchup today, though, the Styx Ferrymen versus the Jade Dragons. Dragons, of course, we saw them yesterday, came out with a good win. But the Ferrymen, we have not seen them since the Road to Worlds phase ended. Obviously ending on a pretty strong note, top 2 seeding there. That's what they get the bye from yesterday. But this will be the first time we're seeing them on the 10.12 patch.
Yeah, we've only gotten now 2 sets on this new patch. A lot of stuff has changed. We still don't know where people are going to, prio. Maman, Chernobog, there's a bunch of different items also changing. So this could be like a brand new look at the meta from these teams that we have not seen play. So it's going to be an exciting day.
I mean, yesterday we saw that new god, Maman Brigitte, in mid. We also saw her in jungle a little bit. I'll be interested to see where the Styx Ferrymen try and prioritize this, and who better to hear from than the jungler himself. We've got Cyno standing by for an interview.
That's right, we got Cyno here. First and foremost, I want to ask, though, because we have a new update that comes in for this event. How much do you feel has changed since the last time you played?
I actually do think there's been a decent amount of changes. Watching the games yesterday, I was definitely surprised at some of the picks people were picking. So I definitely think there's a different meta than the last time we played.
And I know yesterday we saw a lot of Maman, who's, was played in mid, played in the jungle. What are your thoughts on the god?
I think she could be pretty good. Some games, maybe.
You're going against the Dragons, which I think, looking at the bracket, or at least looking at how things were coming into this, maybe could catch you by surprise. What are your thoughts on them as an opponent?
I mean, I was impressed with how they played yesterday, honestly. I thought they played pretty clean yesterday. Some of their picks surprised me, but overall, they're a good team, so it's going to be a tough challenge.
Awesome, man. Well, it sounds like you've got everything wrapped up and everything exactly where you want it. Ferryman, top seed coming in. Everybody, I think, is really excited to see this. Winner gets to go to Worlds, which is the last question. How important to you is it to win this set specifically?
I want to win every set, so.
There you go. Sometimes that's all you need, the winner mentality. Hey, man, good luck in your games. Thanks for your time, and we'll go back to the desk.
Cyno feeling confident, but not overconfident. He didn't come out. He didn't talk trash. He was feeling good on the meta. I mean, he just come out, bring the confidence. That's pretty much the same vibe we've seen from the Ferrymen all season.
And I think that's a good thing to point out with the meta. He said that a couple of the picks were surprising. So what does that mean? Mage solos, they did get nerfed. Maybe that's something that got a little overpowered yesterday. Something we're really going to see in these Ps and Bs. Also excited to see where Maman Brigitte goes. I think it was exciting God to see yesterday. Excited to see her again today.
Yeah, I think the Dragons in particular, some interesting gods, not only for the meta, but also for their team specifically. I mean, I know we were questioning a little bit about where they were going to put things, but Cyno, I'm interested in his question. He answered on Maman whether or not he was interested in playing her, and I'm not necessarily sure it's a Cyno god. I'm also not necessarily sure it's a Paul god, right? Like Cyno's a little bit eclectic. Paul likes to play the safer mid laners, not really an assassin player. So for you know, potential top 3 god over in the SPL, right, coming into the meta, I'm not sure it fits with the Ferrymen as well as it does with some other teams.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. It does not strike me as a Paul god, not really a Cyno god. Honestly, if I looked at this team, it strikes me as a Baskin god more than anything. But,
yeah.
I mean, we haven't seen Maman played in solo lane yet. Don't know if there's any potential there. We've talked about, you know, mage solo builds. Can she build that build, or will she just build something, you know, full damage? So, multiple different things, multiple different facets with this god, with this team, kind of where they're going to be played. Or will it even be something that they prio? Maybe it's something that they give to the Dragons to then counterpick or play against, something like that. So going to be a really curious chess match in these Ps and Bs.
Yeah, I mean, even outside of that specific god, though, I mean, both of these teams, the Ferrymen and especially the Dragons, have been really comfortable with their own meta, right? Mike has been the only one really playing this Aphrodite, maybe Quig a little bit.
Quig a little, yeah.
Confidently going back to this pick. Coast, of course, just wants to play on her. That's really what it seems.
It's just on her.
He just wants to play on her. And he's happy to do it because he consistently is dominating that dual lane. And I think that the Dragons, for all they've brought out, for how, you know, I don't want to say poorly, they certainly weren't feeling great for the first half of Phase 2, had a little bit of a rocky start. Ever since the Coast pickup, they've been on the upswing, and then yesterday to come out and 3-1 the number 4 seed, the Highland Ravens. I mean, they've got to be rolling on some momentum going into this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, momentum is always going to be a thing that can carry you. Maybe they weren't a top 4 team, as you said, at the beginning of the phase, but they've looked at since the Coast pickup. They've contested the Levi's, the Warriors, the Ferrymen. Yes, they finished as a lower seed than the Ravens, but if yesterday proved anything, it kind of showed that the Dragons were just the better team there, and they thoroughly deserved this top 4. I mean, now it's on to this game to kind of prove that you are going to be doing something with how these Ps and Bs are going to be going. You're going to be able to contest the top-tier gods, top-tier players, and we've seen it multiple times. They are able to contest these top teams. We just need to see them take away full sets, not just 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, I think with Ps and Bs, this one's going to be really interesting. Both of these teams have their own individual gods, their own, you know, unique ways of playing the game. And with the new god, the new meta, we saw LASBRA on Fenrir yesterday as we take a look at this jungle pick. One of the more driving factors, right? We've talked a lot about the dual lane for the Jade Dragons pickup, and it's hard not to after the pickup that they had earlier on this year. But I mean, I also think LASBRA has been a big driver of this sort of renewed success, especially with, you know, a couple of those jungles that have been coming towards the top of the meta. The Ratatoskr, the Fenrir pick that he kind of pulls out of nowhere yesterday. I mean, he's been a real driver for the aggression on this team.
Yeah, I think it's 100% correct highlighting dual lane, but there's more to this team than just how dual lane is going to be playing. Yes, they kind of rely on a little bit of pressure over there, but LASBRA gets a lot of stuff done. The only god I didn't like him on yesterday was that Ama. I thought it looked uncomfortable, to say the least. I don't think he looked... And because you compare it to the Erlang, the Fenrir, he looked fantastic on those. He was really dictating a lot of the paces. Those team fights, when they were dominating those team fights, a lot of it was started by LASBRA. So if he stays with those picks, I expect just a great performance here by Las.
I think we do have a little bit of a one-on-one matchup here between these two junglers that may be the driving factor in some of these games, right? We just talked about LASBRA, we talked about Cyno a little bit earlier. My sort of focus goes to the god pools immediately, and I'm not really sure that these guys share a ton of picks, and sure enough, like you get some of the tanks, some of the popular junglers, Ratatoskr especially, in the middle right there. But I mean, LASBRA's not playing Ullr run. He's not playing E-set, and Cyno's not really playing more of those traditional junglers. I mean, they have very different styles in some of these games.
Yeah, I think when you look at LASBRA's side, it's a lot of true assassins. Kama, Daji, Fenrir even. They want to get in, get a kill, maybe snowball that fight, but they're kind of just looking to just execute one or two gods. You see Cyno's gods, a lot more game controllers, not really one-shot. They're more CC heavy other than that Nemesis, where Nemesis is the one that I highlight where he plays this consistently like other players do. When you look at most of the other gods, the Pele, the Rat, he's building just tanky items and just engaging, and then they play to just one-shot execute. But that Nem, that is something that he will look to hard carry on and build full damage and look to just 1v1 people. And that is the one god that sticks out to me, especially with her buffs. Maybe a highly contested god in this jungle matchup. And then Fenrir, another god that got buffs. Maybe something I could also see Cyno playing, building a little bit more tanky, kind of dictating pace, pulling beads, stuff like that. But interesting to see who they prio, what are they going to be looking for, because as Cyno said, the meta, he views it a little bit differently than he saw yesterday. And what we saw yesterday was Erlang, Fenrir, Ama in the jungle for LASBRA. Is that where he's talking about? Is that where the change is happening, or is it someplace else?
Right, I mean, for these picks and mans, we are going to have Styx Ferrymen in the first pick position. Jade Dragons going to take up that second pick slot. Do you think with the slightly different meta, the 10.12, do you think there's any like new advantages to being first pick versus second pick here?
I've been controlling kind of Maman currently, because since there's not a ton of games so far, very low sample size for Maman, who's going to prio her, who's not going to.
Right.
If you take first pick and you see the second side bans the Maman, you instantly know these guys highly prio this Maman. It's something we're going to have to worry about if we do worry about it. And if they don't ban it, something that kind of goes over to you, where do we want to first pick this? Do we maybe just pass it off to them, allow them to take it in that second slot, and we just pick something that we know is strong, something like that Bog, Athena, even Yemoja. So I think it allows you to kind of control the P's and B's and kind of almost get a look at what the other team has been practicing, what they really want. So I think it's a really good pick by the Ferrymen.
Yeah, I mean, after looking at the games yesterday, what are you trying to take away maybe from the Dragons picks and mans? It felt like they were winning pretty confidently in the pick and man phase against the Ravens. They were going in with pretty much exactly what they wanted, but with Mike, I mean, he plays the Afro, he plays the Khepri, he plays the Sylvanas. Like, what are you trying to focus out if you saw the game yesterday versus the Dragons? What are you trying to take away here?
If you've seen Coast at all this phase, there's one god for this entire team that sticks out. It's obvious, you talked about it. It's the Anhur. Please do not let Coast play Anhur. If they take first pick and they first pick the Anhur, maybe, sure, why not? If you want it that bad, we'll trade out 2 really high tier picks for this Anhur. But outside of that, just ban it. It's such a free throwaway ban. It allows you to kind of put him on something that he's not as comfortable with. Yes, he did very well on the Hachiman, but there's a difference between Coast Hachiman and Coast Anhur, and it is night and day. That Anhur is terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Zap take it away as sort of the 4th ban in one of those games yesterday, and I think that was I don't think they won that game, but that was the only game where Zap maybe didn't feel like completely at a loss for pressure in that duel lane. And not only, I mean, you said it on the cast yesterday, if you are picking on her, you better be winning those 1v1s, right?
Yeah.
You better be forcing those, trying to take that pressure in the duel lane. And for the Dragons especially, the duel lane, that's where they want the pressure. On the Ferryman side, I'm not even sure that they're as concerned about that dual lane pressure because they're winning elsewhere on the map.
Yeah, and we've also seen it from Cyclone this entire year. He'll happily pick this Bog and take the Bog and lose lane, but then use his ultimate to make a play on the other side or split push back into the game and then ult over when a fight's happening. Cyclone is not worried about winning dual lane. Cyclone is worried about getting late game, kind of like Vote used to do on the Dragons before they made the change for Coast, where they just want to get 20. That's what an ADC's job is. I mean, essentially, the early game doesn't really matter for an ADC. You just want to scale into that late game. But Coast, one of the first ADCs that actually came in and tries to make that early portion of the game matter. That's why he does pick this on her so much. He puts a lot of pressure on you. He shows up to shield camps all the time. Even if he's behind, he'll show up to them. Purple buffs, even if he's behind, he'll show up to him. And very rarely is he actually behind, so he's showing up to these camps ahead, and he will take the fight. And a lot of the times it's not even a 1v1. There is somebody rotating through the jungle just in case to help Coast out.
Picks and bans for game number 1 here. Now remember, this is a Worlds qualifying match. The loser of this one, not out of the tournament quite yet. They'll get to play tomorrow up against the Kings to have another chance at qualifying. But And like we were talking about, you'd love to seal the deal here. You'd love to take it away. And this is a best-of-5 matchup. We've seen these all phase 2 long, where they develop their own little metas here of what they value, what they don't. And already we're seeing some of those targeted bans come through. The Baba Yaga up against Paul taken away. The Poseidon, I think, probably a target at Nika from what he played yesterday, taken away. And of course that Maman, the Athena, already off to some targets here in the picks and bans.
And I think this early Maman ban on the Ferryman side should tell the Dragons something, where it's they don't want to first pick this. So that leads into the next P's and B's of, okay, well, this is something that they are going to be worried about. We can play around that. So that's kind of a curious ban by the Ferryman to ban it so early. But on top of that, Morgan ban, Athena Baba, nothing too surprising so far. I guess the one god sticking out, Chernobog, got nerfed. He's still incredible. He's still very, very good.
Still on the table, as well as these mage solos, right? They take away the Poseidon, but Raijin still on the table, Morgan Le Fay still on the table, and they choose instead to take away I was going to mention
That's the one I was about.
Yeah,
forgot that one.
He does get banned away, but instead they choose to take away that Morgan, presumably from Dardez, and Chernobog left open on the table. First pick for the Ferryman.
Yeah, kind of targeting Dardez out for the early portion. The Ferrymen are. He played Maman and Morgan yesterday, and I forgot the third god he played, but those were his 2 prio picks, so no surprise they take those away, try to put Dardez on something else, because he looks comfortable on that Morgan, he looks comfortable on that Maman, no surprise there. Chernobog picked by the Ferryman, a little bit of flex potential here, but not really. It's going to Cyclone 99% of the time. Paul plays different gods. We talked about it earlier. He wants to live, he wants to have big AoE damage. Doesn't really like to play those assassins, those hunters as much. And then Raijin on her for the Dragons. As you said, mage solos. We got one locked in right now, potentially. Could go to mid also. And then the on her for Coast. Not banning it away, Coast picking it early, no surprise there.
Yeah, Dragons definitely making sure they can focus out this ADC pick, make sure Coast is as comfortable as possible. A little bit interesting for me that they're choosing the Raijin over the Morgan Le Fay. Thought that might have been a little bit more prioritized, but Nika goes back towards that Raijin. It's going to leave up the Morgan for the Ferryman if they want to lock it in, and they will, along with the Yemoja. That's a strong top 3 for the Ferryman.
Very strong top 3 indeed. Some flex potential there. Baskin's played the Morgan before. Paul's also played it. I would push it a little bit more towards Paul than to Baskin. So that kind of leaves a lot of top tier solos expected. So maybe this is the spot that Cyno was talking about where meta was a little bit different. Maybe they have something sneaky over there. And then Baron last pick by the Dragons, or Baron third pick by the Dragons, last in this first P's and B's slot. Not a surprise. It is a god that Mike really likes to pick into this Yemoja. He views it as a very hard counter pick. And with the buff to Baron 2 patches ago, 50% mitigation in that ult, this is a very hard character to lock down and to deal with. We also saw it a lot yesterday in that second game.
Yeah, we saw it played yesterday, had some success to it, but I mean, Baron, or PBM rather, likes these sustain picks as well. You're able to stay alive in the fight a little bit longer, get those heal procs off, as well as just the engage that maybe Aphrodite doesn't necessarily bring. You can just start the fight off with your ultimate. But you're right to point out this solo lane side. I think if you're the Ferryman, you can pretty confidently say this Raijin's going to solo. I'm not sure it's very much a Dardez god. You're feeling more confident with that in Nika's hands. And so maybe looking at some of those alternative picks, perhaps leaning towards a warrior here, is where the Styx Ferrymen might be going. That's where the Dragons think they're going as they take away Chalk and Erlang. Notably, Amaterasu still left up on the board.
Yeah, Alma's already making it all the way down. And we saw it in jungle yesterday, not solo.
Yep.
Saw it in jungle, so maybe something that the Ferrymen could look for, the Dragons could also look for. And with that Erlang ban, the Rat bans, a couple more jungle hits. And as you highlighted, that Ama locked in by the Dragons. I said I didn't love it in the jungle yesterday. There is, yes, still potential for the Raijin mid and Ama in solo lane. But the Dragons comp, at least around this Ama, comparatively to yesterday, they've got a good amount of CC. Raijin provides a lot in the ult. Baron has the 3, the ultimate. Anhur's got a bunch of CC in his kit for a hunter. So I like it a little bit more than I did yesterday, but it's just not something I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, it's a lot more facilitator style,
Yes.
as opposed to, I mean, we've seen LASBRA on the Pele, on the Ratatosker, on the Nemesis, where you just get in, get a kill, get out. not necessarily what you're looking to do on Ama. But that being said, when you're lacking that frontline support, you've got 2 mages, right? And yes, they're going to be tanky, but at the end of the day, they're 2 mages. You don't have a guardian, you don't have a warrior in that solo support spot. I want to talk about that pick, though. That is an interesting lock-in. The Vulcan for the Ferryman feels like it might be headed towards that mid lane.
Yeah, that looks like it's Paul's pick. Vulcan buffed in 11 or 10-12. Now has extra ultimate damage and a little bit extra scaling on the turret. Curious that is the way that they opt for, but I mean, the Vulcan Naja combo is a tale as old as time. Naja brings you to the air. If Vulcan is basically on the map, not in base, the Vulcan ult is going to be landing. It's going to be hitting on time. This is something they've practiced. I'd expect a lot of executes to happen with this Vulcan Naja combo. And then going over to the Dragons, on to their last pick. A little bit of flex potential up here, but it's probably Dardez's last pick. And the 3 gods he played yesterday, the one I forgot about was Cuckoo, which is banned. So now Dardez is kind of having to answer the call of a lot of your picks are not available.
Wow.
And Persephone is the last pick by the Dragons.
Persephone locked in here. If I'm not mistaken, Girl will have to correct me on the cast. This might be a god that we just haven't seen quite yet here in the phase 2 at all. So the first time in a while that we're getting to see this Persephone. Of course, reworked quite a bit ago, and we can talk about that all day. I mean, this brings a lot to the table that we haven't necessarily seen yet from a mid laner on the Dragon side, and for me, it feels like a lot of utility with that ultimate, right? You toss it out from wherever. It's not necessarily that huge secure ability that he had with the Kukulkan. It's not the huge disruption, big knockup that Maman had, but a lot of area control with that Persephone ultimate.
Yeah, I'm curious why the Persephone was the pick to opt it for, because it's a god that didn't get buffed. It's not something that was played the rest of the year, so it just kind of came out of nowhere. What is the deal with this Persephone? Why do they want to pick it? Well, as you said, the ultimate, big teamfight control. Also, another thing she has that is a little underrated, I think, is her area control. You kind of have to play around those plants. It's good poke. It's a little bit of disruption, and you have to be worried about where those plants are, because once it sneaks up to the late game portion, those plants are a little sneaky damage, and they're hard to kind of deal with.
Yeah.
Especially when, I mean, you have 3-4 plants down, and they're all coming out at the same time. But late game, I'm a little worried about, as you said, where not really true frontliner anywhere on the Dragon side. I mean, double mage, you're going to have the Vamp build in solo.
Triple mage.
Oh, yeah, triple mage now. Yeah. Vamp build in solo. You have the support Baron, who's going to be building tanky, yes, but still a mage. And then the Ama jungle, it just seems like a bunch of semi-tanks, kind of. There's no real... I'm going to steal this from Myth yesterday. You kind of have to have a hyper carry in these late game fights when it gets to that point. If you don't have somebody that can kind of 1v5 carry, can kind of put it on their back. And yes, it's on her, and it's coasts on her, so like that is about the best honor you can get. But I just don't know how the late game really goes super beneficial for the Dragons. They don't really have insane bursts. They've got some good consistent damage, but I think I'm a little worried about the Dragons late game.
Yeah, this Persephone lock-in certainly throwing us for a loop. I think perhaps throwing the Ferrymen for a loop as well, right? You got to think in this sort of scenario, how long has it been since the Ferrymen have played against a Persephone?
True, very
right?
true.
I mean, you're going to have to start thinking about that matchup. On the other side, though, they picked the Vulcan. How long has it been since the Dragons have maybe played into a Vulcan? So a couple interesting picks, and interesting that we're both probably going to the same role. Don't get me wrong, we could get some spice here and see the Persephone go, but we don't have to wait any longer. We don't have to guess. We're ready for game number 1, Dragons versus the Ferrymen. We'll throw it over to the casters, Gore and Trelly.
Thanks so much, Frog and Inbound. That's right. It's Gore, it's Trelly, and of course it's going to be Doug as we jump into game here. And Trelly, man, first off, it feels like a veritable feast of things to talk about up at the front. So hopefully they give us time to actually discuss all of it. I'm also really interested in seeing what it is. Yeah, the split, 70-30 in favor of the Ferrymen. And there's a lot of things I could probably jump on that seem very obvious up front, but the first thing I'm actually going to ask you about, so this Amaterasu jungle for LASBRA.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it is just now registering. I looked,
I
saw
was waiting
Persephone.
for you. I thought that's what you were going to ask me about.
Yeah, I did not realize this. You're watching in real time, my brain processing that this is a Persephone solo. So we'll screw the jungle conversation for a little bit. Persephone, over Raijin in solo.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a big fan of Nika's streams, and he plays some outlandish solo picks, and he makes them work because he's just that dude, right? He's just good at playing some outlandish solo picks, but for the life of me, I can't figure out what he's cooking here. I mean, Raijin full damage traditionally is not good. He is the easiest target you've ever seen for a Vulcan ult. If you're not going to be tanky, Dardez is going to have some struggles trying to survive not only Cyno, but of course what Paul's able to do. Vulcan, I think, is in a fantastic position thanks to those buffs. And Persephone traditionally is very easy to dive. The issue, or maybe the reason this pick stands out, is because the Ferrymen don't have great dive. They don't have a traditional, warrior. It's just a Morgan Le Fay who likely will get blink and will try to, facilitate some of that aggression. But man, I've talked about hating the Ama jungle. That is still true.
Yeah. Lost every game yesterday, by the way. I double-checked it.
I believe it. I just don't see what it brings. I understand that Amaterasu herself brings tremendous objective pressure, and that's, a benefit, no doubt. But, I echo a little bit of Bobby was saying. The late game doesn't look great here for the Dragons. I need to see this Persephone in action. I got to see why Nika went to it. It does not register to me so far why this pick was so highly prioritized. I mean, it's a last pick, right? So it wasn't that highly prioritized, but at the very least, there was other options, and Nika wanted this god.
I'm just happy to cross another god off the list of things that have been played this year.
Yep.
I think it brings us down. I believe only one left. I can't remember off the top of my head who it is. Aror steps up to cause some trouble around a shield buff. Doesn't look like he's going to have too much support in doing so. LASBRA's over on left lane. And so, yeah, this Amaterasu has definitely been a volatile pick. Yesterday, Ravens picked it first 2 games, lose both of them. LASBRA plays it third game, loses with it. So we've yet to see it actually find success out of the jungle. Persephone, we've literally not seen all year. And honestly, I think last year when we saw it, it was a one-and-done, throw-it-out-there game.
Yep.
Vulcan. Paul, I honestly thought that we would probably see BMT pull this pick out maybe first because it feels like a BMT god, but Paul loves it, has played it well in the past. Also recently got a pretty decent buff.
Oh yeah, I've been loving the Vulcan. I mean, so I don't know how Paul's going to level, probably 1 into 2, that's what I would imagine, maybe 1 into 3. But you can actually max the turret now. Like it is perfectly viable. You're going to lose a lot of your damage, but your farm is going to be insane. You just drop that turret, let it clear the wave, keep on going. The base damage on every level but the first got buffed. And then, of course, the ult scaling is a little bit sketchy based on distance, but all you need to know about the Vulcan buff to his ult is the minimum damage it can do was increased. So if you're going for the shortest distance possible, it now does a little bit more, which helps out because you can't always go for the max range Vulcan ults, right? They are very slow, and that red circle tells the whole enemy team where it's going to land. Like I was saying earlier, though, Dardez might not get a choice. When you're in Taiko drums, you have to cancel it and Thunder Crash away. That takes like a solid 1.5 seconds. You might not have the time to get away from that Earthshaker.
And especially if it, like you said, is doing base damage when you just drop it on your feet.
Yep.
Suddenly, I'm running up, backfiring, dropping a turret, and dropping my ult right there.
Yep.
Good luck to get away. It could be a huge amount of burst late game. It gives them a carry potential, right? A lot of the conversation it feels like the desk was having, you had kind of touched on, so you might hold that thought. Cyno misses the sash. That might go ahead and drop this entire gank in its tracks. Shield buff, also not going to be an easy pickup. Rotation from the Dragons, going to be massive over to the left lane. Now Baron Samedi party is here, and Mike is the life of it. Isn't quite able to pull in a roar, but forces the beads and forces the ult out of CycloneSpin. A lot of pressure exuded from the Dragons just on left.
Wow, I love that play from Cyno. I think 9 times out of 10, you miss the sash and you go, all right, that's fine. I'm just going to ult Mike, right? You go in for the Baron, you try and pull beads. But Paul immediately calls, guys, there are 2 coming towards you. Dardez and LASBRA, they're on the way. And it is much more beneficial if, A, you guys get out, and B, if I do not rotate. And that's exactly what Paul does. He just drops his turret, tries to confirm the second bastion, clears waves. Dardez misses a good bit of farm because of that. And more specifically, there's no fight after. No one gets caught out. Cyno definitely would have had to beads, and even if you beads Baron ult, if you are that close to him, you're still getting pulled in by life of the party. So great patience there from Cyno. And also Aror held the beads till the very last second just to make sure that he wasn't getting pulled in as well. Styx Ferrymen, at the very least, are calling out exactly what kind of movement's going to be happening here. LASBRA's got the extra movement speed, so he can traverse the map very quickly.
Now that I'm looking at it, again, Grand Scope just didn't quite click, but a Naja Vulcan combo really is a King's combo. It is, hey, I'm Cyno, I'm going to ult you, take you up, and when you land, Paul is going to ruin the rest of your health bar. That is the genuine ideal. But we've also seen that sometimes struggles, especially depending on who Naja grabs. It feels like with a Persephone, with a Raijin, admittedly, depending on the build LASBRA goes for, you've got a mage for a support. It does feel like he's got some pretty good targets for Vulcan follow-up to just pierce through anybody.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And one of the benefits of Vulcan, more so than the Cuckoo or the Ra or the Thoth, is that you have the meatball as well. That is even more confirmation. You don't have to time the ult perfectly. You can ult and then drop the meatball and say, hey, even if you have Aegis, I'm going to knock you up before you get to use it, right? You are going to land on CC and then the ultimate. You don't really have to time it perfectly every single time. I don't think Paul is going to have too many struggles with that, but the meatball helps. And, we mentioned objective pressure with the Amaterasu, but buffed Vulcan turret's got to come into that conversation as well, right? You just drop the turret near a Gold Fury, near a Pyromancer, and it can get shredded very quickly. So I've been harping a lot on the Styx Ferrymen's composition, but the Jade Dragons, this triple mage strat, which we've seen time and time again, does have a lot of CC. Persephone, Raijin, Baron, they do provide a ton of that CC as well, so it's not like just the Ferrymen have the beads burn. But man, I'm racking my brain trying to figure out how Nika is going to play this Persephone solo. I imagine you send out Grasp of Death, you're looking for a big ultimate, and then you just send the flowers down, right? You play like a normal Persephone, except you're going to be a bit tankier. Is that going to be the best engage, though? Because if not, you're relying on Mike and LASBRA, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Baron and Ama do have pretty phenomenal engage. It's just one of them can pull the beads, the other one can go in. Ama definitely has a fall-off period where she's just auto-attack, so those ults are going to have to be on point. How many times have we seen a Persephone just chuck an ult down the lane, hits no one, and then you just get zero value?
Man, but if it hits, they don't have a ton of auto-attackers on the Ferryman, so it feels like if it hits, it's going to last for a little while. So maybe that's going to be a little bit for it. We haven't seen too much out of any of the ults, really, right now. Even though some of them are big. And we could see, early pressure, actually maybe in mid a little bit with a 3-man presence from the Dragons. I wouldn't be surprised to see some focus over towards the Fury. Though at the rate we're going, we might not see a fight. So maybe the Beacon, maybe a Pyromancer early on. Just depends on these solo laners. I feel like over the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I guess, with these mage solos, a lot of the fights, especially early, they're either happening on right, or they're happening because your solo laners just completely ignored his lane and rotated into some ridiculous fight early on. Well, it looks like, did he skip a point just to make sure he maxed out his backfire?
Yeah, I think, because you're not using the ult too often, but it does seem that he went in, 3 points in the turret. Yeah, so that's what I like to see, right? Actually making use of this Vulcan buff. And I'm telling you, it starts to add up, especially because Dardez has Raiju. You can put Raiju on the turret, and that, gives you at least a confirmed target. But someone like LASBRA who wants to dive you is not going to spend time auto-attacking that turret, right? You want to go in with your ultimate, hit your dazzling offensive, go in. You can't waste 5 or 6 auto attacks on a turret when you're trying to get in, get out, and that damage will stack up. One of the benefits of playing this buff Vulcan and leveling your abilities the way Paul is, but hasn't dropped it towards the Gold Fury yet. Dardez has been getting the better end of these XP trades, has been about a level, or maybe a half a level ahead of Paul, pretty consistently, even though he rotated out. And because of that, it's not like Paul's going to go over towards Gold Fury. If anything, Cyclone and Aror have also been stuck underneath towers. So, aggression aside, seems like, besides Baskin, the Jade Dragons are getting the better end of the farm so far.
And do you think, so first off, we get a Yemoja, which is something we are rarely treated to, it feels like nowadays. But do you think that a lot of that's just based on how aggressive they can be on the Dragons? It feels like I just saw LASBRA deep in the jungle and not really an opportunity. Like, Cyno can't punish him right now. Paul wasn't nearby. So it feels like they are able to get away with a little bit more in this early game.
If we could listen to the Styx Ferrymen, my guess is Cyclone is repeating the same phrase on repeat. Who cares? We're better late game. Like that's what I'd be saying, because it's just true here. If you get to 30 minutes and you are dead even, the Styx Ferrymen should feel confident. There is no reason for them to step forward. If the Jade Dragons aren't forcing a Gold Fury, and even if they do, Paul has, confirmed from halfway across the map, there's no reason to get overly aggressive, because it's not as if the Jade Dragons are forcing anything. They step forward. I mean, we saw Mike pull beads off of Aror. Dardez has the level lead. Like, they are pushing their lead slowly but surely. But I think the Jade Dragons need to put some pep in their step. I'd be looking towards this Fury, or at least an attempt to bait Paul forward. Because it is scary thinking about, CycloneSpin late game, Paul getting into late game, Baskin, once he gets Blink, is going to have tremendous engage. It's going to be scary stuff if the Ferrymen just stall this out.
Well, speaking of tremendous engage, Cyno, felt like was looking for something, won't find it. LASBRA instead goes in, dazzling offensive. Stun on 2. Pillar, dash for Cyclone, gets him away, and there's the River's Rebuke. You've got the pull from Mike, but up the sky and down comes Cyclone. Healing is there, and the gank is thwarted. Pressure on duo. But it looks like it might just result, maybe a purple buff invade.
No.
Maybe just a shield buff at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, Mike already used the ultimate here, so there's no reason to go for a kill. Paul hasn't rotated out. He's saying, good luck, get your purple or don't. So I love this from the Dragons, right? I just highlighted they need to be worried about late game, and they need to, try and force something. They pull both ults from Aror and Cyclone. They pull Aurora's beads. So now you have a decent target, but Cyno was hiding in the red buff, goes for the ult, but now you're going to take a lot of damage here. Dardez wants to confirm the red buff, looks like he'll be able to. Even if you just go for the random Windfire Wheels and the red buff trick, Dardez is going to be able to beat those. He's on point. Now there's 2 different targets though, right? Aurora's beads are down, and Dardez. Cyno's got a target, Mike's got a target. Very easy to get life of the party off on the Yemoja, even with Riptides. You kind of just have to chase her down. Question is, do you have the follow-up to kill her afterwards? If Coast and Dardez are there, I'm saying yes, 100%.
Well, Cyno's health bar, I was thinking we were going to have a conversation around Beacon, but it looks like Paul, Cyno going to back. Dragons aren't necessarily in a position to fight for it. Those beads being down at this time maybe makes a big difference. Also worth noting, we have a level 12 for just a few, but not everybody on the board, specifically CycloneSpin. Just now Cyno hits it, but he's not going to be back in base for it.
Oh, he's gone.
And a bad spot. No beads. The damage is good, but there's the heal from the Vulcan. Paul making sure his support stays alive. And now Baskin, with a massive rotation, has damage onto LASBRA. Forces him to dash away, Coast. Cyclone, they join the fray. And it's going to be a fight over this capture point. Low health bars for Cyno and for LASBRA. Bouncing back and forth. Good meatball from Paul. Gets some damage out onto the beacon, but this one looks like it's going to be all Dragons all day, even though the Ferrymen try their best to fight back.
I mean, you accept that for the Styx Ferrymen, because you made out with murder, essentially. Like, there's no way Aurora should be able to live there. Gold Fury started up. Baskin steps forward, trying to zone forward, but I think that Gold Fury's already done. It's only CycloneSpin, and he's too far away.
Yeah, at that point, Paul used his ult around the beacon? But guess what's gone? The secure. Yep. You don't have to worry about it anymore. And there's that pressure you were looking for from the Dragons. They were already about 1,200 gold up now, going a little further, but still looking for that first blood. Cyno plays aggressive, Windfire Wheels into the sky with Nika, and you have to imagine a waiting Persephone goes down. Paul picks up first blood, but his team still suffering. Cyclone goes into the tier 1. The Ferrymen playing a little loose here, but they get the first kill even though they lose a Fury and a tower.
Yeah, my guess, number 1, is Cyclone was ulting away from VaporishCoast, right? He was like, oh man, I don't want to fight this. I'm going to fly in, and decided to go underneath the tower. He felt like that was safer. Dardez goes to the Taiko drums just to keep the tier 1 tower alive. But yeah, I got to dial back just a bit. Beacon fight starts off. Aror has no beads, is surrounded by 3. I see a level 14 Raijin at the time, and I'm like, okay, Auror's definitely dead. Fail to consider the fact that LASBRA went Atalanta's bow shoguns and is an Ama jungle and provides almost no damage into a fight like that. So yeah, Aror only had to worry about Dardez and was able to zoom out. Afterwards, though, just too much damage. Nika steps forward. The Persephone actually did have great zoning there because of the flowers, so the Ferryman had to back up. Okay, I was like, there's no way you're pulling a fire giant here. Everyone on the Ferryman just walked over a ward as well. I'm not thinking they're going to be able to find Nika. They could tell beats 90 seconds, everyone showed up to try and punish this Persephone. But a well-placed ward from the Jade Dragons shows, hey, not going to fall for that one.
It gives us maybe another little break overall. Just the one kill on the board, Shelly, but the Dragons have really been able to kind of wrangle this almost 3,000 gold that kind of hovers back and forth with the waves. And a lot of that early on was just invades, pressure. Even though it wasn't a lot, they got exactly what they needed done. Now the Fury, the Beacon. But it does feel like this portion of the game, 15 minutes, is where things start to slow down for them. And where we start having those discussions is, okay, what about these team fights? Where are you finding your wins? And I'm a little worried about it.
Paul has put 0 points. I mean, he's put 1 point into his ult. That's all he cares about. He's like, you know what? This ult is rarely going to be connecting. We're not looking to be aggressive. I just want to farm. I'm only putting points in my 1, 2, 3, which is a viable strat. I mean, how many ults have we seen Paul send out? One. And it was just to peel for Aror. And you're getting more value out of everything else. But I think you're right. I mean, the Jade Dragons are rotating out there trying to force Pyromancer. This is exactly the pace of game they need to play. The Styx Ferrymen, I think they just send Cyclone left. I don't know if they even want to attempt to go for this Pyromancer here. Sure, you can go for your steal attempt. But that's... Oh, man. That's even worse. If the Jade Dragons saw what just happened, yeah, they've got no reason not to go in.
And they're going to cause some damage. Paul in the middle of it all has to use both relics, tries to stay alive, just cannot. 5 dragons lock him down and kill off this Vulcan. It wasn't even his beads that got used. It was Aror dropping both relics as well. And that's going to open up a tier 1 tower in mid. The Dragons here and capitalize on the situation. Now it's all about that Pyromancer. Should be an easy pickup, but the Ferrymen aren't going to let it go without a fight. Cyno goes in, up to the sky with Nika, who just got the beads back. Can't use them there. Can't use them immediately afterward, but does not care. Is tanky enough now and survivable enough that they walk through. Mike might not be able to say the same thing, though. Barely walks away the damage follow-up. Just not there. But the Dragons pushed away from the Pyro, and the Ferrymen are able to take control.
And that's the benefit of the Chernobog, right? LASBRA goes left, tries to defend the tier 1 tower, and because of that, Cyclone's able to fly in. Of course, yeah, a great blink ult from Cyno, but without Paul around, isn't too much burst damage follow-up to Nika landing on the floor, and there was just no follow-up. So he's able to get out just fine. Sure, you get the Pyromancer, and Cyno's able to pick up the Runic Bomb, but the Jade Dragons have set a pace for this game they are trying to hit, and it's Fire Giant before 18 minutes. Mike gonna tank it up, and there's no one even close. You can't tell me Paul wants to step forward. He just beats an Aegis.
He's got his ult, though. All he has to do is know it's going on.
Oh, he knows.
And in an ideal world,
Gotta
he
send
needs
it now.
to know the health bar. Yeah, you got to shoot it out. You got to go for it.
Too
He
late.
sends it,
No,
and he
got it!
Exactly what you need. The Fire Giant for the Ferryman, but now you got to stay alive. Paul can't quite do that. Aror locked down. No Omi to work with, and it's a double kill for VaporishCoast. 3rd on the board for the Dragons, but it's the FG to the Ferryman.
That is ridiculous. I mean, you could tell the Jade Dragons did that play where you stall. You're like, wait a second. Do we burst or do we wait? Should we wait for it to go? And it was just a panic moment where Paul just walks up. I could have sworn he sent it too late, but because they stalled their DPS. Fire Giant steal. Also, Dardez gets absolutely cooked by some lucky crits from CycloneSpin, and they have to back up. Baskin and Cyclone alone are able to send the Jade Dragons packing. Cyclone's ulting just to see if he can chase anyone down. He's going to coach for the 1v1.
Pillar, drop by Coast. Crit is just a little better, though. A few autos from Cyclone makes Coast reconsider the engagement. I thought he was going to go try to fight Nika over, or sorry, LASBRA over on. I saw the Amat, and immediately I just assumed a Warrior solo. Instead, tier 1 for LASBRA. And, of course, the Fury now picked up by the Ferryman. A very rare instance. It feels like a lot of the time, especially when a team's behind, we see a Fire Giant get stolen, and then a whole lot of nothing done with it. Ferryman playing aggressive and playing proactive on the map.
Yeah, and again, I don't even think the Jade Dragons call was, too risky, right? You have so much vision around the map. You know that if Vulcan walks up, he's got no relics, but no one was on zone duty, Gore. I think that's the big difference maker. Because the Amaterasu is in jungle, because LASBRA is, he's got Frenzy, he's got Shoguns. He's not the tanky solo laner that walks around in zones. That's Nika, and does Persephone want to be that far up in a fight when you're just trying to sneak Fire Giant? I'm thinking no. That's the reason Paul gets to walk up scot-free, and now Styx Ferrymen get to try and build that gold back in their favor. They were able to grab the Fury. They're able to get some towers going. Not as if the Jade Dragons didn't push a lot with the lead they had. But you gotta remember, Cyclone still scaling. Only 1 crit item online for VaporishCoast, whereas CycloneSpin's getting very close to 2. And once that second crit item is filled, there's almost no one on the side of the Dragons that wants to be near CycloneSpin. I mean, sure, Dardez has the range to, DPS him from a distance, but Coast and LASBRA don't want to take boxing trades once Cyclone gets a second crit item.
LASBRA might be in jeopardy of taking a boxing trade unwillingly, given position on the map. Cyclone is still looking around for him. Slow down a little bit, and admittedly there's only 4 kills on the board. It's not like this game has been high octane from the get-go, but Cyno's looking for a little more. Tries to force the beads out of Coast. Instead, gets CycloneSpin to rotate in, force out the Aegis, and they lock him down. It only buys a little bit of time. A clean kill from the Ferryman in the chase, and the pressure on right is going to be there. LASBRA nowhere nearby, so this is going to be a 3v5 for the Dragons. And a tier 2 knocked down simply, putting the Fire Giant to use. They've only got a minute left with it, and they're looking at the Phoenix.
Yeah, LASBRA can't even grab the tier 2, has to go back to base in case this Phoenix gets looked at. And it seems like that's the call. Nika has to dash away immediately, so Mike goes into the party.
Yeah, pulls in, has it on 4, is able to get a lot good damage. Oh my god, great damage from Paul, spread out across the Dragons, forces them to fall back. River's Rebuke locks down LASBRA. Cyno goes up into the sky with him, crashing down, waiting for the damage from the Vulcan, takes him down to about half. Dardez as well, knocked out towards the back, but not quite done. Phoenix seems to be doing too much damage, same with the Dragons. And the defense holds strong around the bird.
Yeah, Ferrymen get their tier 2 tower, get out. Jade Dragons put up a nice solid defense, though. Even with the ult from Cyno and LASBRA landed, not too much follow-up. You really do need Paul's ultimate, or just some massive crits from CycloneSpin, which just were not there. As Coast is sort of chasing, Fire Giant's going to spawn up here shortly, so the Styx Ferrymen need to get back to base, get their wards, and get ready for another fight. I do like the odds here just because there's no way the Jade Dragons try and go for a 50-50 again. Not when Paul's around. It's not worth it. But no beads, no Aegis, 2 minutes on Paul. That's a big difference maker. I think if LASBRA's able to close gap, if Nika hits a clutch ultimate, heck, if for some reason Paul gets really close to Mike, which he definitely shouldn't, but if Mike is able to catch him out, there's a lot of different ways that Paul can get caught out here. But the Ferrymen have that ace in the hole, right? CycloneSpin. Someone still has to go stop this Chernobog, and that Deathbringer was finished up. I don't think LASBRA wants to take these trades. Look at the build. There's not much damage online for him to even get close to Cyclone here.
And unfortunately, normally we have that conversation. We go, well, yeah, send the solo laner. He's got teleport. He'll just match the Chernobog. There's no teleport. There's no hope.
What if there was a crazy lineup where Nika could stop Cyclone from split pushing, but send the ult through the jungle and it went all the way to 5?
That would be wild.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
No,
but that would be insane
crazy
to get to see it. I feel like the longest Persephone ult we've really gotten to see is it has to be down mid, right?
Down mid for
the
sure.
The longest place you can find is there. Baskin getting engaged on by Mike, the life of the party, used to try and pull him in, forces out just a little bit of discretion. Ultimates mainly. Cyno, Baskin lose theirs, all from Mike's. Relics not in a great state really for either squad. Maybe a little worse off for Nika. The Dragons stepping up around a Fire Giant. Ferrymen are going to try to defend. Let's listen in with the Dragons.
No beads on him.
Come on, Naja. Turn on Naja.
With you, Coast. I'm with you.
They fucked that bomb up. FG's gonna be a coin toss, guys.
Yeah, Vulcan knows.
Hit the bug,
I'm
hit the
on
bug.
board. 1 HP board. No dash. I'm going on him.
I'm on Morgan.
Yo, Naja, Naja Morgan. Fire. Do fire. I'm alive here. Do fire. Paul just went back in.
Paul's still around, though. Look at how low the Fire Giant is. They haven't reset it yet, Gore.
Finally drops down. And it looks like they're going to give him a little bit of pace. A lot of low health bars. You can hear Mike calling for it. The problem is time isn't really going for them, right? You back to base. You're going to reset Paul. First off, I heard a lot of Vulcans won, and he was 3/4 HP. So maybe not quite the concise comms on getting rid of Paul, but he's going to have his ult by the time the Dragons are able to start it up. A lot of vision dropped around this side of the map. But a successful fight. You get rid of Baskin, get rid of Cyno. And I think that's a good opening for the Dragons to try and extend this aggression, especially since they're down in gold right now. Only by 1,000. They're going to step up. Charlie, they're going to start it as best they can. But they have to worry about this. You can see LASBRA a little bit on zone duty. Has eyes on Paul. Might not want eyes on Paul.
It's done.
Given the damage. But this should be FG over to the Dragons. No chance for the Ferry to step up. And now going to be the Dragons who are trying to row it down.
Yeah, I mean, the Ferrymen didn't really have the relics to make that call. You could tell Cyno and Baskin get to the back line, but Blink beads, Aegis beads, all available now for the Styx Ferrymen, but not quite during the Fire Giant siege. There were some low health bars, but I think it was a bit of a split fight. Aror has to stay in the back line with Paul, has to stay in the back line with Cyclone to get those heals off, which means Cyno and Baskin are essentially diving by themselves. So great call by the Jade Dragons to split up that team fight, but the Titans are marching down mid lane. Gold Fury available. And I think level 20s being hit for Baskin and Cyno would be massive here, because the Jade Dragons, sure, they've got 20 on Dardez. They've had that for quite some time. They've got 20 on Coast. He's got an upgraded starter. But LASBRA and Nika, as I speak, just ticked over to level 20. They should be able to go back and upgrade those starter items if they want to push with this Titan. Whereas, you know, Cyno would love a Protector of an Eye of the Jungle. Baskin just now gets the Blood-Soaked Shroud. Those are big power spikes, especially when you have to defend not only against 5 members of the Dragons with Fire Giant, but a Titan that's running down your mid lane.
You're not fighting in neutral territory right now. Honestly, I'm surprised to see, although looking at the jungle, there's not much for Cyno to do outside of just try to defend right here. Pyromancer goes over to the Dragons. They're going to join their Titan in mid. It's getting shredded pretty heavily by the Ferrymen, so it shouldn't be too much. Life of the party used by Mike. Tries to go for the pull-in. Oh my god, the damage thrown onto Mike. Mike's just going to get deleted, and that might stall out the Dragon's push in its entirety. In fact, CycloneSpin wants a little more, goes in maybe for too much on his own. He's going for the crits on the LASBRA. LASBRA gets the stun, does find the kill, but might sacrifice his life. Is anyone going to hit anything here? He's walking away. He's getting away with murder. Aror deep in there, but Paul gets pushed out. The Ferrymen just don't have the damage for the follow-up. They cannot find the fight that they wanted to pick. They chase this down, and the Dragons punish them for it, knock them right back to the tier 2. The chase continues a little bit. LASBRA feels aggressive. They don't have the tank, the true tank, to really try and take down this tower.
Yeah, I mean, if Cyno connects that ultimate, maybe things go a bit differently. Aror did have a great River's Rebuke to catch in LASBRA, but at that point, Cyclone chased a little bit too far. Baskin gets caught out by himself. It was just a split team fight, Gore. Seems like the comms for the Ferrymen may be a little bit muffled. They didn't call targets correctly. And maybe CycloneSpin lives a bit longer if he dashes into the wall. He sort of, I think he was like a couple frames off, and because of that he didn't get the reset, the second dash, and LASBRA was able to kill him right in front of his entire team. Ends up looking real solid. That kin size was a big power spike for this Amaterasu. So far, LASBRA's been more of a CC bot to help out his team. If Cyno times the sash right, okay, I was going to say, there was no beads on this Ama, but he's been more of a CC bot, more tanky. Now, has that Atalantis, has that Kin's, going to upgrade the starter soon. This Ama's becoming a bit of a threat.
And admittedly, you know, split team fight, like Cyno goes in, not Cyno, Cyclone goes in like way before everybody else. Like by the time the Ferrymen get to the fight, Cyclone's having to run away because he's 2 hits from dead.
Yeah, he just went in first.
And unfortunate spot. I think if you have you know, well, first off, a Naja that's getting your Windfire wheels, your sashes, etc., but also just a crit Chernobog to do some extra damage in there maybe changes this fight. I thought the bait on LASBRA was going to be enough, or he pulls him in far enough where maybe they're going to make some miracle turnaround, or at least 1-for-1. Unfortunately for the Ferrymen, none of that happens. Instead, 5,000 gold in favor of the Dragons, 7-3 for the kills. And they've got 3 tier 2s they still got to push through if they want to find an opening to this base. Fire Giant's going to wear off in 3 seconds, so Drelly, given the timer, we're either going to see a very fast 29-minute Fire Giant, or we're talking enhanced in just a couple.
Certainly could be. Once again, tried and true. Chernobog over to left lane is the call for Cyclone. He's going to go split push. LASBRA usually the one to try and deal with him. But at the moment, he's on the right side of the map. Remember, he's got the Shoguns. He's got the Frenzy. Those sort of things make your Fire Giant shred a lot quicker. Whereas the Ferrymen just sort of grouped up around their speed buff. There's no reason for them to step forward at the moment. They know that Fire Giant isn't done. But they also have ward coverage, so they've got some idea that the Jade Dragons are nearby. Remember, last fight sort of kicked off with PolarBearMike. He went in for the life of the party, tried to pull some relics, gets absolutely shredded. Maybe he's a little bit fearful of doing that again. Maybe you got to hold on to that ultimate a bit longer, because there is some DPS now on the side of the Styx Ferrymen.
Cyno forces beads out of LASBRA. Mike's going to go for the life of the party. I don't know that the Ferrymen want too much of this. They're going to get some damage out there, and actually they're going to surge forward, have to watch CycloneSpin. And as they chase this down, let's listen in with the Ferrymen.
I ulted in. Persephone ult. Kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it. I aegis it, I aegis it. I lost all my
Persephone jump. Big damage, big damage.
I'm low.
Please get out.
This is bad, this is bad.
Run,
We need to
run.
live, we need to live. If they chase, if they troll, careful Baskin.
They're just gonna pull EFG. They're gonna do EFG, by the way. Paul's one. Paul's one.
Yeah, they're in an interesting spot now, Trelly. Dragons able to burn Cyclone in the blink of an eye. Has to use both relics. No beats for Paul. Ult down. This is going to be an enhanced Fire Giant. If they wait, they don't actually wait. They could have waited the 5 seconds, but no. Just a normal Fire Giant here for the Dragons, but power nonetheless. Almost 7,000 gold. The Pyromancer should push them right over. And some really, really interesting fights from the Ferrymen that it feels like they don't have to take.
No, that left Phoenix was free. There was no one going back to stop CycloneSpin, but you could tell what happened is the Ferrymen said, we can win this fight. Ult in. We got this. But once again, because Baskin is not on a traditional diver or doesn't have blink, CycloneSpin's the first one in the backline. You don't want your Chernobog to be the first one in the backline, but twice in a row, he has been the one ulting in trying to initiate these fights. And then Jade Dragons go, hey, we've got 5 people here. Let's just attack that guy. And props to Nika, hits a very clutch ultimate. Cyclone doesn't want to beat, says, I'm just going to Aegis, you guys break it for me. Ends up still taking a ton of damage. I just think it's a split push call there. The Styx Ferrymen don't have to take these engagements. You know, they can stall and wait for the Jade Dragons to make a misplay, or at least that's what I'd be doing when you're this far behind gold-wise. It's 11,000 at this point. But they see one opportunity and they try and force an engagement, and it's been ended up biting them twice now. The only misplay the Jade Dragons made there was not waiting 5 seconds, and if we're honest, I think it was because Paul's ult was up in 10 and they didn't quite know where he was. If he wasn't on the map, they don't want to risk losing that enhanced Fire Giant, so I can understand why they just burned it.
Now we're 31, let's call it 32 minutes into the game. I want to jump in. Let's reassess. So, Amaterasu jungle. How are you feeling about it now? 2-0-4?
Yeah, I mean,
it's working out.
There was definitely a lack of damage early on, but the Jade Dragons played around it, and since then, LASBRA has been, I mean, positioning perfectly. There's been no opportunity to get a kill on him yet. He's been ulted twice by Cyno, and both times landing, there was no follow-up, right? Because Paul has to use his ult at other times. Still a threat. He's only got 2 damage items to his name, but you know, the kin size, the Fire Giant, the Frenzy's been working out. And the Styx Ferrymen just don't have the ability to, they don't have that much CC that they've been able to connect, so no one can really deal with LASBRA. Sure, Cyno can sit there in mid lane and try and clear, but he doesn't want to fight him.
The thing I'm also interested in is watching Nika. First off, just how annoying a Persephone can be with the poke. But also that ultimate could be clutch. Coast takes a lot of damage. There's going to be the Persephone ult. It locks down CycloneSpin, but it's not enough to open up too much for him. Left side Phoenix is the target for the Dragons. 8-3. And Trelly, a whole whopping of gold in their pockets that the Ferrymen just do not have access to.
The flowers have to be so annoying.
And that's going to be the engage for the Dragons. The flowers may be opening up the path of Roar. Good River's Rebuke has 3 locked into it. Look, damage. All you need is 1 great ult from Paul, 1 good disengage. But no, it's a Roar who falls down. Low health bars in Cyclone. He's the first one in, but
Once
he's maybe
again,
got more to
why is
work
he
with, but no,
flying
just
in?
gets deleted. He's alone in there. Now your duo lane's completely gone.
He had beads and Aegis score, but he's the only one diving. It just can't work that way. Chernobog cannot be the first one into these team fights. Now, instead of a fantastic defense where you keep your Phoenix alive, you're going to lose 1. You're probably going to lose 2. This mid Phoenix is going to be very difficult to keep alive with only 3 members of the Ferrymen alive.
You've got Nika pushing up left. You've got the Dragons knocking on the door of your mid Phoenix. They're not confident enough to just walk in. Again, this Fire Giant, it's not enhanced. They took it just a few seconds too early. So they're not going to have the backdoor protection stripped unless they have the minions. It's going to be LASBRA going in with a wave, looks for the ult. Separates a few. Good Vulcan ult, good! Delete button from Paul, and you've got your dual lane respawning now. Maybe the time to surge forward. You push back Dardez. LASBRA's half health. Mike, half health. You barely saved that Phoenix, but it seems to be alive. Cyno's going in, misses the Windfire wheels. Dardez is going to walk away from this one just fine, but no relics for a lot of the Dragons, and Respawn's coming through for the Ferrymen.
Well, I mean, Baskin comes in so clutch there. Paul sends out the ult. You can easily just walk out of that if you don't hit a double fear that CC's, you know, both members of the Jade Dragons there. Coast gets deleted, but that Phoenix, 1 HP, was just about to go down. You could tell LASBRA wanted to go in and try and backdoor, but does not make the risky call. You do lose left side Phoenix, but you know, if you're the Ferryman, you always have CycloneSpin to go split push, so that Chernobog will be able to get his money's worth.
Cyclone plus turret, just drop one in left for a little while.
Yeah, as long as Cyclone isn't ulting into 5, the Chernobog is still going to get some good value here. And Coast is dead for 3 seconds already. The Ferrymen are here. Someone has to defend against LASBRA, but if he doesn't show up to this Fire Giant, you're losing EFG. I think you're fine with dropping that 1 health Phoenix for EFG.
Yeah, Coast back alive. You've got 3 of the Dragons. Life of the party thrown out. Fire Giant looks like it's going to be a little bit of a coin toss. Goes to the Ferryman. Enhanced this time. Cyno is low. Has to play carefully. LASBRA looking for the kill. Has Paul for backup. Baskin might just be the sacrificial lamb here to let everyone else get out. And that's going to be the case. They have to back up and deal with things as much as they can. Alternate timeline keeps Dardez going despite Baskin's best efforts. The Ferrymen, Trelly, they've been fighting tooth and claw. They finally put themselves in a position to fight back, maybe on even ground with an enhanced Fire Giant.
I mean, that's super worth. Yeah, you lose Baskin, you get alternate timelined. Oh well, now you have enhanced Fire Giant on 4. You just set up a turret in mid, you know, make sure that there's no backdoor shenanigans, and you group up and push out left. Unless the Jade Dragons group up and fight right now, which, guess what, Gore? Running down. There is a ward. This is going to be spotted out immediately. Yep, so Paul just turns tail and run. Mid Phoenix is the target, and the Jade Dragons want to go in before Baskin can spawn.
That's going to be the opener from Mike. Stuns out Aror instantly, and they get a lot of damage. Now Cyclone having to fight with LASBRA. That's exactly the trade you said he doesn't want to take, and Cyclone is going to go in for it. Tries to get the ult down on him. Has to be careful with how far he chases. The Dragons aren't trying to help out LASBRA, but one good dash gets the Amaterasu out of there. Keeps the mid Phoenix alive. Left is going to respawn soon as well. Cyclone's ult is down. Paul's ult is down. If you're looking to just keep the base alive right now, the Ferrymen have done exactly that.
Yeah, this was the point that the Jade Dragons are worried about, right? This was the point of the game where LASBRA starts realizing how much damage Cyclone can do, and Paul has the ability to one-shot anyone off the map. Dardez doesn't have that alternate timeline for 200 seconds. It looks a bit grim, but the Jade Dragons still have been able to persevere. They have the kill advantage, they have the gold advantage, but how much does gold really matter at this point? Everyone just about has those upgraded relics. I saw a 3k defense pop, I believe just purchased for LASBRA there, so he's going to be a little bit tankier. You have to worry about what's going on now, though. The Jade Dragons are not running. If anything, they're stepping forward. Life of the party does not correct with Aurora, and they have just like 3 more seconds. Yeah, that Phoenix has spawned in, so the Styx Ferrymen have stalled this out. Do they have enough time to push with Enhanced Fire Giant, though, or do they even feel confident to do so?
And if they do, where do you go? I mean, you've got the tier 2 in mid. That's probably easy to knock down. Get some gold in your pockets, maybe finish up some of those items, or in Cyclone's space, give him, in Cyclone's case, give him the opportunity to just go ahead and buy a 3k pot. He already has one in the pocket. 3 deaths for CycloneSpin, Trelly. All 3 of them happen the exact same way. A Chernobog diving 5 without his team.
Yep.
I feel like what we have seen is great fights from the, great presence on map from the Ferrymen, followed by maybe some of the worst fight presence they've had this year, just with such mixed comms, or maybe just mixed engage when it comes down to Cyclone getting there first. It feels like that's the only thing that's held them as far back as possible.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The Ferrymen have been finding success and then overcommitting. Like it just doesn't need to happen. I understand wanting to just dive. You have Chernobog ult, you have immunity when you land, but not a necessity. LASBRA is pushing right. He's going to reveal himself here shortly. There is no Runic Bomb in play for the Jade Dragons, so it's not like they could just destroy a Phoenix with ease. An Enhanced Fire Giant is going to wear off in about 2 minutes or so, so if you're going to make a push, it's right now. And I don't think the Styx Ferrymen are positioning like they're confident. If anything, yeah, they're backing up. It does seem to me, Gore, like they're just going to waste this one out and not push in. But that Enhanced Fire Giant, it's not going to be handed to them again, right? They're going to have to go in for a team fight around the jungle, and I think that benefits the Jade Dragons, if anything. Jungle fights can be a little bit sketchy if Mike gets any sort of value with life of the party. If LASBRA is able to connect in the backline, we'll go for a wraparound, which he loves to do. And more specifically, if Cyno whiffs another ultimate, these wind fire wheels need to connect, and I've been seeing a lot off the mark. If he doesn't take someone up to the sky, Paul just has to go for a Hail Mary and hope it connects, which, unless Baskin's on point with the fears, it's not always easy.
Well, maybe that secure gives the Ferryman. Maybe Paul's not even thinking about, hey, who can I hit with this? Just Fire Giant? Cool, that's a guy. I'm going to kill that guy. They've got a little bit of time to work with before the FG respawns here, but overall it's Pyromancer. It's going to give him a third bomb in pocket. It's going to be double on CycloneSpin, so you really want to keep that guy alive now. But a lot of the pressure comes down to the engage here. LASBRA, you had mentioned Ama wants to be the one zoning. Maybe one of the front ones to initiate. But Mike, that life of the party, as you had mentioned, especially in narrow jungle corridors, it's been a huge deal to try and deal with.
Yeah, no doubt. If Aror steps up too far, he almost always has to beads. That Riptide will get you out of some trouble if it's at the the tail end of that ultimate, but if you walk around the wrong corner and Mike's there, you're getting wrapped up into life of the party, and even beads and a Riptide is not going to get you out of that. So positioning definitely going to be important for the Styx Ferrymen. And I like that Cyno's on LASBRA duty, because everyone knows how this man likes to play. He likes to go for the wraparound, he'll push a wave, he'll hide in the jungle, go for any sort of route to get behind the enemy team. And Cyno is just standing there sort of as a ward. Like, I'm going to make sure that this Amaterasu doesn't get to the back line. The Jade Dragons, for the first time this set, are playing rather defensively, right? They are staying back. They don't want to step too far forward. And something that I didn't consider, the Relic Dagger Shade is making sure that Aror has 2 different bracers down for his squad. They get the value here, and they get the value over towards mid. He can drop another one anytime now, so Aror is just making sure that his team gets that buff essentially wherever they are in their own jungle.
Well, Ferryman, again, playing around. They're trying to test the waters right now. And they've got all 5. This is not common, honestly, when you have a Chernobog, although Cyclone's ult is down right now, giving him vision more than anything. And so you've got all 5. They step into the Fire Giant pit, test the waters a little bit. And they prove, while they're too murky or too hot, you can go with whatever analogy you want. They don't commit to it. Dragons now looking to run a little bait of their own. Fire Giant taken down to half health. And that's going to be Cyno. Goes in. Windfire Wheels has to be used defensively, and Cyno's getting chased out. Damage is good, but Persephone ult off the mark this time around. That could change some things around. Nika dashes forward, leads the way. Cyclone in a little bit of trouble. Needs some big crits, needs some help from his team, and has it this time around. Separated in low health bars for the Dragons. Chase potentially on for the Ferrymen. Just depends on if they can find the engage they want. Coast over the wall. Mike far away enough. And it looks like the Dragons give up most presence around the Fire Giant. LASBRA hanging out, walks in, tries his best, but just cannot secure it. Fire Giant enhanced, and in 42 minutes in, all 5 of the Ferrymen have it.
Man, I can't think of how much better that fight could have gone if CycloneSpin had his ultimate, right? I mean, Coast is so low there. LASBRA sticks around. Dardez uses that dash, but doesn't quite clear the wall, so he could have been in some trouble, but Cyclone used it sort of as a vision before the fight, so didn't end up having it to chase. But the Styx Ferrymen finally get Enhanced Fire Giant on all 5. There is still a Tier 2 tower 42 minutes into this game that they might have to deal with. And the Jade Dragons have a choice to make, Gore. They can sit underneath Phoenix and trust their defense. We know how annoying the flowers from Nika can be. Or they can go for an ambush in the jungle. And that's exactly what CycloneSpin feared. Pops his ultimate just as a ward to make sure they're not walking into a trap. Jade Dragons show themselves, all 4, in their own jungle around that Primal Fury. Now they know they're not walking into any sort of ambush. Sure, Cyclone doesn't have the ult, but I think it's more beneficial to know you're not, you don't have to check around every single corner for an ambush as opposed to just walking forward. And I just realized that I'm pretty sure Titans are going to march once again. This is the second coming of the Titans. They're going to run right up mid lane and help the Styx Ferrymen look towards that mid tier 2. But CycloneSpin's ult's down, and once again the Jade Dragons are grouped up in the jungle.
Just waiting. They've got a lot of ward coverage on left. That Fury going the way of the Ferrymen helps give them a little bit of pressure. Also, another Pyromancer is up. You got some 3K pots in inventory. You've already got 3 bombs. What's a 4th? I mean, at that point, you can add it. And we're talking the capability to just drop a Phoenix in an instant if the team so chooses. It's going to be an easy pickup.
1,500 crits.
Yeah. Cyclone's hitting like a truck. I'm surprised, Trelly, to see the Dragons even stepping up to be near this tier 2.
It's kind of funny thinking about how much damage he has total. It's like 10 auto attacks of like the damage he's doing right now. Like if he just hit 10 of his current autos, he'd hit like double his damage at this point, but hasn't had too much opportunity to do so. Titan walks up, the Styx Ferrymen are going to absolutely shred it. I wonder how they're going to play this though. With 4 runic bombs, I see no reason to 5v5. It's not a necessity. You can split up very easily. Anyone with Enhanced Fire Giant has the ability to take down one of these Phoenixes. And the Jade Dragons are strong in numbers, right? Their 5v5 is a lot better than a 1v1 you check over on left lane. Trying to split up the Jade Dragons is a good idea, but with Titan pushing up mid, I don't hate the call to just send Cyno with the Titan. I mean, you certainly have enough damage to grab a Phoenix if only LASBRA's there.
Now, Cyclone has ult, so send him over wherever you need him. It's going to be with the Titan and with Cyno. Can ult wherever they need to. Cyno walks in. Runic Bomb should help out a little bit. And with the Titan there, that Phoenix is just a couple hits away. I think the Titan might just get it, and mid-Phoenix gone. As easy as that. Now it's up to the other 3 bombs and the rest of the Ferrymen to try and get something. Nika, ult goes way too far, way too wide, and now Paul with some good damage. Delete button onto LASBRA, but it's 1 for 1, loses Aror. 70-second respawn timers that you're dealing with right now, and it's a 4v4. Right side Phoenix, 3 bombs, and about 1/3 HP. Enhanced Fire Giant for another few minutes. Not like you need anything there, man. Phoenix deleted with just a couple autos from CycloneSpin.
There's still one more bird to go. A lot of relics that were kept there for the Jade Dragons. In fact, everyone has everything except for LASBRA, who's dead, and of course Aror, who had to use his speed. So besides that, the Styx Ferrymen are fine. They've got 40 seconds without LASBRA, but you lost a very solid engage tool and your sustain with losing Aror, so that's going to be the end of their push for now. I think there's a world where you go in for a left side push 4v4, but I guess you're already 46 minutes into the game. What's the rush, right? You might as well just wait for Aror to spawn back in. The Enhanced Fire Giant has fallen off, and now the Jade Dragons have to make a choice once again. Do they stay back and defend these fire waves, or do they go in for the insta-pull on Fire Giant? And that's a viable strat. We've seen it time and time again. When you have all these fire waves to deal with, just stand in the jungle, stand at Fire Giant, and pull it immediately. Sure, there's going to be a little bit of fire damage stacking up, or fire waves rather, but if you get the EFG, who cares? Will CycloneSpin pop his ult as a ward to figure out that there are 4 dragons in the jungle? Well, let's find out.
4 of them right here. LASBRA is seen on map. Aror walks into it, but now he's got backup. Cyno blinks forward, and Aror gets out of there. River's Rebuke is great, and you've got the damage. You're chasing him down. Nika looks to be the first on the chopping block, and Will Baskin with the chase down. Alternate timeline, 1 more shot, 1 more kill, and that's 3 of the dragons gone in the blink of an eye. Coast tries to return some damage, but there's nothing you can do. The Ferrymen, they stall out as long as they can, and it takes them almost 50 full minutes, but Trelly, they strike first and win game 1 of this set.
Yeah, as much as you would love like Paul to walk up with no relics available into that jungle, yeah, it was Aror who had beads available and was just like, yeah, go ahead. You can ambush me, but guess what? The rest of my team has my back. LASBRA wasn't even there because he was clearing waves. And the Jade Dragons make a desperation call. Doesn't end up working out, and the Styx Ferrymen will take game number 1. 48 minutes in, Gore. I mean, we knew that the Styx Ferrymen should feel confident about their late game. We knew the Jade Dragons had a fall-off point, but never did I expect we'd be 50 minutes into this game where it was like 11,000 gold that the Jade Dragons had ahead, but they just could not end. They could not fully break the base of the Ferrymen.
And you gotta think, I mean, once we stopped seeing Cyclone be the first guy in the fights, the Ferrymen looked all of a sudden so much better. It really was, you know, not to take anything away from the Dragons there. I think they play incredibly well. It's the only way you get to a 50-minute game. But it does feel like the Ferrymen fought themselves a little bit in those first few fights. And so, you know, you're down 11,000 gold. You're forced to fight around your base defense for a while. Forced to waste 1 entire Enhanced Fire Giant just on defense. But at the end of the day, you hold out. We were talking about late game for the Ferrymen being so strong. And that's exactly what we get to see 50 minutes later, and it is a 1-0 lead now for the Ferrymen. But this set is far from over. We'll find out what happens next right after this.
Cthulhu's Dream, the new flavor coming out of Advanced.gg. They've been with us pretty much the entire season. Beautiful flavors thus far. I've enjoyed every single one of them. This one might be my new favorite, though. The raspberry acai combo. Advanced.gg/SMITE, and SMITE30 is the code for this weekend only to get 30% off Cthulhu's Dream and everything else available up on their store. You can get a shaker as well. Beautiful. They're from Advanced.gg, so thank you so much to them. Make sure you check out the Cthulhu's Dream new flavor from Advanced.gg. You can get some energy over there. The Jade Dragons, they may need some energy after that set, because after a long, hard-fought game number 1, 48 minutes, they do their best. They fall. Styx Ferrymen, they take game number 1.
Yeah, I mean, and a pretty good early game and mid game by this Dragons team, making plays, getting picks. Unfortunately, the game goes late, and they are so heavily reliant on Nika hitting somebody with his ult and pulling relics minimum. Not just doing damage, pulling relics minimum. If he's not hitting the ult, there's really not much else this Persephone can do. The poke was fine, but was it relevant enough? No. No really anti-heal into this Yemoja. Heals up most of it. And I think you kind of saw the problem with this late game comp that the Dragons had. Strengths in the mid game, yes. Falls off though, and it falls off rather quickly. I actually think the Ama this game wasn't as unimpactful as I thought she was going to be. I thought she was going to have problems diving the backline, but there was a lot of fights where Laz would get in, get a kill, get out. And so, highlight play by Laz there. A lot of, I think, lack of CC in the backline by the Ferryman made it hard to punish this Ama. And then, we saw so many objective fights with like this clip right here where Vulcan just, you can't out-secure a Vulcan, and if it's getting too low, it's just his objective. And I think the Dragons have to look at that as maybe they need something that can secure with him, or stop trying to pull the fight or the objectives when the Vulcan is there.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty pleased watching the Jade Dragons in the early game. I felt like they got off to a good lead. That first Fire Giant pull, they were up about 4,000 or 5,000 gold. But then that steal comes through, and you slow the game down if you're the Ferryman. And despite still some positive fights, they found 2, they found 3, they were finding these small picks. But the Jade Dragons just not able to find like that full wipe fight. And it was the Styx Ferrymen who I think were consistently, much more consistently, especially once that draft got online. Maybe saw a few questionable ultimates there from the Chernobog, but I mean, I'm still not complaining about CycloneSpin having that pick. You're doing so much, and the damage comes through across the board. I'm focused on that healing number, 16,000 for Yemoja, for Aror coming out, and that's why they highlight this pick so heavily. I mean, if you're the Styx Ferryman, I think, yeah, you held on. You're very happy with how your draft scaled.
Yeah, and I think 16k healing, and that's not talking about the shield you also get from her too, the shield you get from Faye Blessed. So the in-combat effect that this Yemoja also had, I mean, it wasn't first pick by the Ferryman. They could have, I mean, the Dragons could have taken it away, but there's a lot of high prio gods available in these P's and B's, and there's a lot of trading that will be happening for the rest of this set, and I mean sets in the rest of this weekend. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least, to see where this Yemoja is going to be prioed, because she gets banned often, and then it's just not followed up with a lot of first picks. It's like a counter pick or even second side, or first side, second slot of that P's and B slot. So it's, where is it going to be prioed? Maybe it needs to be prioed over something like a Raijin or just like a ban or something, but late game, Aror, he was just healing too much. He was too effective. The ults were also very effective, and I think that's something that the Dragons should look at too.
Picks and bans for game number 2 here, right around the corner. Jade Dragons, after losing game number 1, they opt for that first pick slot. So they're going to have the option, if they want to prioritize something like that Yemoja, like that Chernobog, like that Maman, if they do get picked through picks and bans. But I think, you know, my major question may be about these solo laners, because we saw a couple of potential solo lane mages. Ultimately, it is Nika on the Persephone. That's the opt that they choose to go for. But the top 3 damage in the game is Morgan Le Fay, Baskin, and then Raijin, this time from the mid lane, and then Persephone, right? So you're getting damage through these mage solos. Do you want to see the Dragons go back to something similar? Did you like the Persephone enough?
Honestly, I expected not as much as Nika did that game. I actually thought it looked well enough, especially in that 10th pick slot. It's not like you put prio on it or anything, so I don't mind it. I think you leave it towards that, unless something really powerful is up, that Poseidon is already gone, but I mean, Opwash is also gone, so we're already down to it's really just Raijin and MLF available in solo lane for those mages. So if those gods get through, sure, you can lock them in. But if it goes down to that 10th pick slot and there's not a ton of value left, I'm fine to see that Persephone again. I thought it looked good enough.
Yeah, I mean, 31,000 damage, not something to scoff at. These picks of Mans, though, as they come through, once again, you get some targeted bans. Of course, that Baba taken away from Paul, and now Aror will not be able to go back towards this Yemoja. That's taken off the board for the Dragons this time around, so you won't have that in-combat healing as consistently there. Or the walls, of course, a lot of other things. Styx Ferrymen hesitating on this last pick, and it will be the Morgan. You know what that means inbound. The Maman Brigitte is left up on the table. And the Chernobog's up as well. These solo mages are up. And sure enough, the Dragons, they choose to let the Maman go if the Ferrymen want it, and they take away the Chernobog.
Yeah, Prio on the Bog. I mean, really no surprise, even though, as you highlighted, Chern died a couple times ulting in, and a couple of the fights didn't look great. But once you got to that really late game, the chase potential, he was critting a ton of utility, survivability. I think this is a fantastic first pick. And now kind of sends that question on over to the Ferrymen, where you have Maman, you have MLF, and you have Raijin available. Probably the next top 3 gods. And also maybe a sneak on her highlight there just because we're playing with Coast in this game. What is going to be picked here by the Ferrymen? Bunch of good options, but whatever you don't pick then gets tossed over to the Dragons. And if you see something like a Maman and Chernobog, 2 of the, I would say, higher prioed gods in the game currently, that'd be very, very strong for the Dragons. But the Ferrymen opt for a Raijin lock-in already.
Wow.
And Morgan Le Fay leaves open the Maman and leaves open the Anhur if they want both.
Yeah, the Dragons call the bluff of the Ferrymen, say that you won't take the Maman. And we'll have to see if they even want to prioritize it. We saw them play a little bit yesterday, but at this point, so many gods on the table for the Dragons that they might want to put in the hands of Dardez, right? If you pick this on her,
very true.
Of course, you can't. If you pick this on her, you have to put Chernobog in the mid lane. That means you can't play the Maman in the mid lane as they did a little bit earlier. Maybe it's a LASBRA god. We have yet to see him on this Maman, but definitely some high potential here for some flex as the Dragons look to lock these gods in. At Erlang, in the second pick, I think probably headed towards that jungle role, which for me, if this Maman gets locked in, seals it for the mid lane. Chernobog probably ADC.
Yeah, I think sealing it in ADC pretty comfortably. And I also think this top 3 by the Dragons is filthy. There is so much damage. There's a lot of control, beads, pull potential with this Erlang. And I think it needs to be highlighted that, yes, Maman is an incredible god in terms of damage, but it's not until later into the game. That early portion, that mid portion, she's just trying to farm. We saw Dardez getting bullied by Tiamat yesterday. Tiamat is not a good early game character, and even she was able to bully out Maman and Dardez in this pick. So something we kind of have to highlight there. But Ferrymen, for their last pick before we get into that second ban phase, Ganesha locked in, which we have not seen too recently, but this character dominated support not too long ago.
Yeah, has the silence, has a lot of the team fight potential. And we'll have to talk a little bit later. I mean, as the draft rounds out, you might be getting that silence value on Maman, on that dive into a character. We haven't seen that interaction quite yet. But as the second phase of bans come through here, Dragons, I think, still looking for their tanks, solo and support. Ferrymen still trying to find a jungle and an ADC, more than likely. As those bans come through, Cyno won't be able to go back to the Naja. That gets taken away, and some tanks away for the Ferrymen. Amaterasu and PBM's Atlas taken off the board. Still all these PBM picks available, though. I mean, Sylvanas, Khepri, Aphrodite, he could go back to the Baron. The field is wide open.
Yeah, I don't think at this point they're worried about getting Mike on something else. I think they really want to focus on just trying to get a solo lane matchup that they're really excited about. I think Raijin should be the expected solo laner for the Ferrymen here. Also, before talking about it any farther, rat ban by the Dragons, which is what I was going to say. Cyno would look great on right here, so good ban out there by the Dragons. But solo lane, I think, is the highlight. It's been highlighted, mage solos. Raijin for the Ferrymen. Dragons are going to be kind of lowering themselves down. Maybe we see that Persephone again. Maybe he has to opt to a warrior like that Chalk, which was banned out last game. Ferrymen, though, locking in that Hachiman for that Hachiman-Chernobog duo lane matchup.
Locked in for the Ferrymen means they'll be holding on to that 10th pick, holding it for Cyno. And of course, you know, we know Cyno's god pull. He could really go any direction
Ullr
with this last pick. Yeah. I mean, depending on what the Dragons lock in, because there's still a ton of potential for what direction they're going to go in. We could see 2 mages. We could see a standard warrior guardian locked out for the Dragons. I mean, what do you think pairs the best with this assassin mid? What do you want to see out of that front line?
I want to see a hard support frontliner, a support that can just stand there. Sylvanas, maybe a little risky into Ganesha. I think it's a tougher matchup. But any real Guardian I want in support. And then I'd prefer a solo lane mage if there's something applicable there. I think even seeing that Persephone again covers a little bit of that AoE that your damage doesn't really have right now. You have good single target. But something like Persephone and then Mike on really anything. I think Khepri, Sylvanas, anything that can play that true support Guardian frontline role makes this Dragons comp feel a lot better, but not that available. It's the Nox.
Did you have that in the prediction bank?
I did not.
You were just about to say it, though. I saw you. You were just
I was
about.
leading to it.
Right.
Khepri, Ganesh,
Exactly.
or Khepri, Sylvanas,
Or Nox.
Yeah.
Or, oh.
We've not seen this yet.
This might be a Maman solo.
Agni solo?
Okay,
because that is really, it's played a lot. You see, somebody was talking about Nika's stream and the solo laner streams. We see a lot of Agni solo at the upper levels of ranked.
Interesting. Definitely some flex potential here for the Jade Dragons. I'm not gonna make a prediction. I'm not gonna put myself on the line out.
Put yourself on the line. What do you got?
Nope. I'm not gonna make a prediction. I think Chernobog is gonna go to the ADC role. That's, you know what? I feel decently confident.
Decently? I'm not fully confident. Just decent.
Not even fully confident. This last pick though for the Styx Ferrymen, the Pele locked in for Cyno. Something that is maybe a little bit like further aggression than I expected, right? Typically more of a facilitator god. You've seen him on that rat on the Naja last game where he's just looking to set up, as opposed to, I mean, maybe a little bit different from the Pele who's looking to get in there, get the damage off.
Yeah, and then you see Cyno's build with Pele and you're like, okay, well he's basically a facilitator with this build where he goes just 4 defense items, but Erendite buff, something I want to talk about.
Yep.
Erendite buff, Pele, probably one of the best Erendite users right there with like Nem. So some potential there where maybe we actually do see Cyno go for a slightly more damage-oriented build around that Erendite. But overall, interesting comp by both teams. We get to see another Maman game, maybe solo, maybe mid. Agni. I mean, if Maman goes mid, that means Agni solo, which is going to be unique. If Agni goes mid and it's Maman solo, that's another unique pick. So either way, solo lane is going to be a very interesting 1v1, and I think Pele also over here means high gank potential in that lane. So going to be an exciting solo side of the map. Duo side going to be a little less exciting with Chernobog, Hachiman, Ganesh, Nox. Just a lot of farming over there.
You're not even entertaining the Nox solo Maman support.
I'm not entertaining that.
Come on, that could be it. That's right around the corner, man. Unique pick. I mean, how do the team fights round out, right? Past 25 minutes, that was a 48-minute game that we just saw, right? So past 25 minutes, these teams, doesn't even matter who's in what role, you just get the 5-on-5s. Where do you feel like it is favoring the team fights for these squads?
I think team fights could be in favor of the Ferrymen, but when I think about 5v5 and late game macro, I think what Chernobog provides is head and shoulders above what almost any other late game god can provide. Split potential, 1v1 potential, and then can just ult into a team fight. And that's not even touching on the Maman yet, where late game, true, genuine one-shot potential on more than one person. So I'm siding slightly towards the Dragons in terms of like just late game, but if it's a 5v5 fight, both teams set up, warding, both teams just grouped up, ready to take a fight. I mean, this is a really strong Ferryman-controlled 5v5.
A lot of raw star power with these gods. Jade Dragons trying to tie up the set. The Ferrymen looking for match point. We're ready for game number 2, and we'll throw it to the casters.
Thanks so much, Frog and Inbound. It's Gore, it's Trelly, and it's Doug one more time. As we jump into this second game, it is going to be Dardez running the Maman in mid, and Nika playing Agni solo. So, Trelly, last time you were saying that you watch a lot of Nika streams and that he plays. Some eclectic picks. Also worth mentioning, it went from 70-30 to 60-40. First off, props to Twitch chat for keeping it in the tens. That's very, very
well done,
rare.
well done.
But also, you watch the stream. You've got the
insider knowledge.
Tell me about the Agni.
Well, I think the Agni is a little bit more in tune with what solo lane mages need to provide, right? Incredible range, which of course Persephone's flowers have, but everything else is kind of close range besides, I guess, the ultimate as well.
That thing's got great range.
Yeah, very easy CC, consistent and quick cooldowns. You know, that's kind of the idea. That's what Raijin, that's what Morgan Le Fay, and that's something Agni can provide as well. Of course, you are going to be missing out on CC immunity, but it's not going to be the end of the world. I actually really do like the Agni solo here. I like a lot of what the Jade Dragons have done with this draft. I've been waiting for the Nox to come back in support.
Really?
It's one of those picks that...
You wanted that?
No. No, please, don't get it twisted. This is purely from an analytical perspective.
Oh, okay.
I always thought the Nox was still good. Does not mean I enjoy seeing it. It's just one of those picks that I expected to come back because I think it's still strong. With that, the Maman getting through, LASBRA on the Erlang Shen. These are picks that, you know, the Jade Dragons should feel very confident on. But they've shown their hand here. And every time we see Maman Brigitte mid, it's usually coupled with this blink. I mean, LASBRA and Dardez both have blink. They want to get aggressive. They want to look for a kill. Probably on the Cyno. I mean, Paul's got beads and plenty of self-peel, but Mike takes a lot of damage early on in this lane. The Nox takes a bit to get online. You really want 3 abilities before you're considering yourself an actual character.
And yesterday, you know, we saw a lot of what the Dragons are doing, right? They, admittedly, they've kind of done something like this before, so it doesn't seem outlandish. But when we were watching the second set yesterday, right, the Leviathans and the Kings, we had sets that were no warriors, no guardians, period.
Yep.
It is just assassin, mages, carries. And admittedly, getting the assassin was kind of lucky in some of those instances. And so it goes to show, I think, where the Ferrymen are, maybe what the meta was expected to be coming into this event. Ferryman still running, at least the Guardian, and having a tank, which, in my opinion, opens up the siege conversation maybe a little bit better. But the Dragons, the run-it-down conversation, well, that's what they've been running for this entire time. I'm also going to keep my eyes. Do you think jungle on the right side of the map, look for the mages? Do you think duo pressure, specifically because you've got Coast if you're the Dragons?
I mean, you've got Chernobog, so it doesn't really scream to me too much aggression that you should be looking for. You know, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, Mike, if he hits a nice combo onto, like, say, Aror, for example, who doesn't have beads, you can look to fight there. But besides that, you know, duo lane almost never screams to me something you want to camp. Yeah, shield buff, consistently you should be going for those, but ganks in particular are hard to come by in duo because when you look at the ADCs, Cherno, Hachi, what do they both provide? Incredible safety. Frenzy for beads, CycloneSpin, just, you know, respecting the silence from Mike. As Nika's getting dove. Oh my goodness, the damage. That was through beads.
I saw, okay, I'm going to lay it out. I saw Cyno sitting over there. Nika looked like he was at his tower line, and LASBRA was just behind Cyno and Baskin.
Is LASBRA dead?
I thought that was going to be a vastly different fight. LASBRA goes in, puts some damage onto Cyno's, going for the chase, but you got to be careful because the Taiko drums, they're right there and pulling you in. Cyno gets out, but does Baskin have enough? Does he have the dash? He might be able to find the kill if he wants to go in, but he does not. Plays it safe, plays it cautious, and instead falls back. Unfortunately, to find that his blue buff has been stolen, but it is a kill for the Ferryman, first blood, and a blue buff invade.
I am very surprised that Baskin played that so passively. You're a level 5 Raijin. Okay, you know what it was? Maybe they were worried that Coast was going to hit level 5 and ult over. Maybe that's the only reason you don't just go in as much as possible, because you have Cyno, who was half health. Sure, he was in danger of dying, but level 5 Raijin with ult and LASBRA's got no bead sitting at level 4, that seems like something you could have went a little bit harder on. Once the damage came out, though, Baskin ended up ulting to peel. He didn't even ult for damage. He started fearing Baskin away from Cyno, so looks like we don't have to worry about any sort of kills on the right side of the map for a bit. Remember, Nika's beads are still down for a little bit longer. Speaking of beads being down, yeah, Cyclones as well. He had to ult away because LASBRA was right around the corner. Mounted Archery is going to be down for a bit. But do you even want to look for another gank attempt? No, LASBRA's already left. So Cyclone's probably going to be sticking under tower.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you got a minute. Beats a minute probably for the ult. Paul! My God, throwing the ult. If one more shot connects, that might be a kill. The heal pops up for LASBRA, and he stays alive. But poor LASBRA, you know, no deaths in his column just yet. It feels like he cannot catch a break in any of these lanes. And the Ferrymen and Trelli, explosive start, get them about 1,000, 1,300 gold ahead.
I mean, that's the difference maker, right? when you're on the Erlang Shen and you start Blink, you have to fear CC like that. Paul can keep you in place with the fear to the knock-up, to the, he's going to be faster than you if you try and dash away. If you try to use your transformations, yeah, guess what? You're also going to take more tick damage, so it can be very scary. LASBRA has to respect the damage that Paul can do, and that was before he even backed, by the way. That was Tier 1 Book of Thoth that Paul was able to dish out that damage. Now he's got full Book of Thoth, so things might go a little bit differently. Blue buffs are spawning in. Cyno wants the 1v1, but it's not a 1v1. Mike's around the corner.
Yeah, went for the knockup. Has the ult, the damage. It's so good. You need a little help from your team, though. And there it is. Tycho drums by some space, but Cyno does not have a lot going for him. Just gets knocked down. Chased out by Dardez. And was looking for LASBRA in the jungle. Some last respite before he dies. But Cyno unable to find anything. 1 for 1. Overall, or sorry, 1 and 1. And Dardez picking up a big kill, and we've talked about this Maman the last couple of days. That's not the power spike. We're not supposed to be talking about the Maman heavily until a couple more items. So Dardez getting that kill can be bad news bears.
Yeah, giving him that early lead, or at least the extra gold, the extra XP to try and hit late game faster is always scary, because it wasn't a fight that Cyno wanted to take, right? He thought it was a 1v1, quickly realized, okay, Mike's here, but he decided to do the DPS because Baskin's on the way. Paul does not match that rotation. Dardez is the one there because, again, you're in the enemy jungle. Paul's not one to put himself out of position just because, his squad's there. He just wants to get the farm online, where Dardez comes through with the explosion of souls, confirms that kill, and now puts Paul in a little bit of a worse spot. As you can see, Dardez hits level 9 first. Can be very threatening, still has Blink. Could even look for some more 1v1s, especially if Cyno comes around. LASBRA's going to be a bit behind in the jungle because of it, but it's not going to be the end of the world. You give that lead to Dardez, and he's going to be able to run with it.
Well, speaking of LASBRA, looks like he's laying in wait, looking potentially for a gank. Beacon's not up for a while, goes for the taunt, tries to pull in Cyno, and Paul instead he eats so much of his health bar, the heal! It doesn't come through in time, but it's 1 for 1, jungle for jungle. Dardez and PBM combine. Now you've got Aror, rotates in, Dharmic Pillars, damage onto Dardez, force him out. Now you just need CC and some lockdown, but not enough follow-up to find a second kill. Stays jungle for jungle, the 1 for 1 trade in mid.
Yeah, love the rotation in from Aror, drop the Dharmic Pillars just to try and catch out Dardez, but immediately just Spirit seizes away, so not going to be able to find that kill there. It was close, though. Cyno almost able to get out. Just a little bit too much damage coming from Dardez on this Maman Brigitte. You got to watch out for that party trick, man. If you get the Soul Spikes party trick combo, you're going to stack up a ton of damage. And now 2 kills going the way of Dardez. That's scary stuff. It's only going to get worse, as far as I'm concerned. Doesn't mean that Paul isn't always going to get damage as well. They are both late game mages. But Maman started Blink and has not been in any sort of trouble so far this game.
Still interesting. 2-2, right? Kills feel even. Feels like the Dragons have been fighting back. It's still, 1,500. Like, it feels like the gold lead actually might be rising for the Ferrymen, despite the fact that things actually haven't been going as clean for them. A lot of that's that neutral farm, maybe the occasional invade. And right now, a lot of respawning jungle for the Dragons may be going to help cut into a little bit of that, but it is going to be a pressure game, Trelly. And it feels like now we're seeing where the fights are going to be. We know more or less what some of these guys are capable of. And I do think LASBRA, that taunt with the right follow-up, with the right people behind it, that might be one of the more deadly anythings the Dragons have for a fight.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's great initiation, but what it really does is pull beads for Mike and vice versa, right? They can set up for each other so well. The Shadow Lock combo can be so annoying. You're essentially standing still for like 5 seconds if you're taunted into the silence, into the Shadow Lock. And that is exactly what the Jade Dragons are looking for, right? They want to chain that CC together. It's single target more often than not, but it's enough to get a pick, and that's kind of what this comp is built around. Whereas the Styx Ferrymen, they've got 3 sets of beats. Only 2 are available right now. So if either A, Cyno, who has been the target more often than not, or B, you look towards Paul, get CC'd, you may be looking for a kill. So I've got my eyes on the Jade Dragons. Beacon and Fury, minutes away. I mean, the Fury's already here, but usually the Beacon gets looked at first. That's not here for about 3 more minutes. That's likely when we see the actual grouping and the actual fighting. Besides that, Coast has been underneath towers. CycloneSpin's been going for poke, but not really going out of position. Doesn't seem like the need for aggression has really fell onto the Jade Dragons just yet.
We'll have to give Inbound a lot of credit, right? He did call, and I think appropriately so, that there probably wasn't going to be a whole lot going on in the duo lane, right? Hachi versus Chernobog is not usually the most glamorous 1v1. LASBRA, though, looking to give us something interesting in mid, goes in for the taunt, damage onto Cyno, and then just gone. Coast comes in. Roar is the one left behind. Now you've got a lot of people over here on left for the Dragons. Instead of looking for a Fury after their clean kill, they're going to go rotate not only into the jungle, but maybe onto CycloneSpin. Luckily, has beads, has ult. Don't think he's in too much damage or danger. It's just the invade. And as far as I can tell, it's just a Chester.
And this is what I was talking about, though. You mean Cyno gets blinked on, doesn't get the ult off this time. It's immediately into a silence, into a shadow lock, and then LASBRA's there to get the taunt afterwards. Just not enough time to get the beats, which are not even available, right? You only have that CC immune, you only have that volcanic lightning, which you're just interrupted from essentially the whole time. So Cyno, if I'm him, I'm hiding in the backline until level 12. Like, I need beats before I leave base again because I'm tired of being the only one who's died so far on my squad. Because everyone else has either A, overwhelming tankiness, that's Roar, or B, some form of CC immunity, that's everyone else. That cannot just be interrupted by dropping the silence underneath his feet. And props to Mike. He's been on point, 3 assists. He's been there every single time, ready to get that CC down and make sure that Cyno can't just ult away for free.
Well, they've been putting pressure on the board. That Gold Fury, that first Gold Fury, screams out to me as something the Dragons are going to want to look for sometime in the next few minutes, but we'll have to see. Especially Gold lead. I mean, it is still, in fact, even further now in favor of the Ferrymen. So the Dragons have to figure out not just how to get the kill, but what to do with it after the fact. The Beacon's going to be coming up in just a few seconds. Maybe a point of contention. Not a lot of pressure from the Ferryman in mid itself, outside of just Paul, soon to be Cyno. So the presence is going to be there, maybe a 2v2. It looks like LASBRA going for a gank on CycloneSpin. Great EI Jutsu, gets the stun onto the Erlang Shen, then goes in for the ult himself. He's taking a lot of damage. He needs Cyclone or Cyno to work together, and they force him into the sky. Wherever you land, you're going to be coming to your own demise. Goes all the way to solo, and all it takes is a dash from the Raijin. 2 kills, and we'll call it in the duo, but Baskin coming up big for his team.
I mean, Cyclone's just different, man. I think we've all used those bastions just to take a few autos, but that was like gambling with your life. There was no reason to do it. I think that he was already sufficiently baited at that point, but still, LASBRA goes in, and then you get the kill, and you get the Gold Fury. That is ridiculous. The fact that he even ulted in that low, but also juked around and forced Coast to ult all the way over and gives the kill to Baskin, and then gets a Fury out of it. That is ridiculous.
Look, I'm going to tell you, I trust a lot of people. I don't know if there's anyone, maybe Katie is on the list of how much, like, Cyclone just trusted Cyno so much with his life. That is absolutely wild. What a play. And again, the gold lead, once again, goes even further for the Ferrymen. Now, Pyromancer pulled up for the Dragons. They're going to step in, but the Ferrymen are here to match, and they're ready to go. Taiko Drums pull in one, PBM being annoyed by the other, and Cyno comes in as the cleanup crew, gets the kill onto his opposing jungler. 2-level lead, and it looks like a Pyromancer for the Ferrymen.
You know, I already highlighted the fact that Cyno doesn't have beats, right? He does now, he's level 13, but LASBRA in that same boat, 1-3, both junglers 1-3, didn't start the beat and have been the target of overwhelming CC. Baskin could have went for damage, right? He could have not triple feared LASBRA back in, but what's the downside? Your whole team gets to hit him for free. You always have your Thunder Crash to just cancel his dash if he gets away. And there's nothing LASBRA can do about it. He just does not have any form of CC immunity, and he's going to be consistently getting called out until he hits level 12. Just ticked over. If I'm him, I'm not even looking for farm. I'm going right back to base and picking up beats because it is just so annoying facing either of these team comps without your beats constantly available.
Right now, shield buff is going to be coming up. Cyclone did just EI Jutsu stun you on your last gank, so maybe you want some revenge on that, but it looks like it won't happen. Instead, Cyclone's going to go in. He has Cyno and Roar is going to join. It should just be the shield buff. So once you see the numbers game, LASBRA is still without that second relic, recognizes not a game you want to play. And instead backs away. It'll be a reset for the Dragons.
Gore, one day I want to see someone do a play like that, but it's a bait, right? Like in that sense, Cyclone is ulting because his team's on the way. I want someone ult in where it's like ridiculously aggressive and it's very obvious the only reason you'd go that aggro is because your team's on the way, and they're just not. And you just get shield buff for free because they're like, oh, everyone's on the way. They must be. He's ulting in. It's like, nah, I just wanted shield buff and I bluffed you. But it doesn't happen too often because it's a
risky bluff.
It's very easy to punish, especially when the reward is a shield buff and the negative is you probably lose a wave and your tower afterwards.
Well, as of right now, experience-wise, 15-15, right? And for 2 lanes, 16-15, a level lead for Baskin. 2 levels in the jungle, though, still. Maybe the biggest difference maker. I'm honestly a little surprised at the farm that Coast is getting. It feels like with the way this game has gone, Cyclone should maybe be a little further ahead. Well, maybe that's just the Ferrymen. In its entirety, Trelly, just shy of a full 5,000 gold in the lead. And they are testing the waters to try and get there as quickly as they can. 16 minutes in. But now the question, I guess, is really, like, what do they do, right? Beacon's not going to be up for a little bit. You don't have time for a Primal yet because it's just not there. Pyro's still down. Where do you find your pressure to keep this lead going?
I mean, so far it seems like Baskin's been trying to rotate out. I've been watching him. He goes for, back camp invades. He tries to look towards mid. So clearly getting Raijin involved is part of the Styx Ferrymen's plan. But I think you wait for Primal Fury. I think you wait for Beacon. There's no reason to rush. You have a level 17 Raijin. You have pretty good safety. Your late game is not going to be outclassed like that much. If you have to worry about VaporishCoast flying around, yes, that's annoying. We already touched on that on the desk. Inbound went into great detail about how annoying Chernobog can be. But it's not the end of the world. I don't think you have to worry too much considering the Styx Ferrymen have good DPS towards fire. They're not going to hate it too much. I wonder if LASBRA can even get Baskin under half. I don't think there's any world where he dies. But dashing right in front of him and lazy backing might be different. No, he doesn't even care. LASBRA doesn't even care.
I feel like that was... I'm not going to call it a bait. I feel like he was waiting. He wanted something to happen there, Baskin.
This is smart.
But they see the back. They see the space.
Paul knows.
And they step up to the Fire Giant. Paul's, beelining right on over there. Sees Nika. Haven't seen a lot of the Agni this game. And he's dancing around the Fire Giant pit. It's half health. Nika taking a lot of damage. That's where the chase. Dark Pillar's a great spawn in for those. And then the damage is there. Cyno for the cleanup crew brings in the broom and looks for everybody who's left behind. Double kill for Paul as they take out 2 PBM left alone. And Cyclone takes him out. 3 kills, 3-piece combo, and exactly what you need if you're the Ferryman.
Wow, I mean, I like the intuition, right? LASBRA's sitting there hiding. The second Baskin goes back, they're like, all right, no one can know. Let's go in for the sneaky play. Paul and Aror didn't even have to think about it. They walked over immediately to check that Fire Giant. I'm amazed that Nika dashes into zone. Maybe he thought there was no one nearby. Oh, they were there. The whole squad was on the way at that point. Even with VaporishCoast flying in, it was not enough time, not enough presence towards that Fire Giant to go for a call like that. And then Cyno just runs it down. The Erendite putting in work. That item did get buffed recently. A little bit of movement speed off the passive, but now the item naturally gets 7% movement speed, which ends up being so much nicer, right? You buy the item, you get extra movement speed, and then when you ult, you're able to chase down so easily. And the Absolution, an interesting pickup there. I guess because LASBRA and Mike have been CCing him so much, he said, you know what? If I get this ult off, again, another item recently buffed, I'll be able to help the squad out, right? That CC immunity is going to go a long way. Either way, this Pele's been doing some big things in the backline. 1, 3, and 7. Sure, dying, but at the very least, making things happen. 7 assists there for Cyno.
And realistically, man, it feels like the Dragons have been playing incredibly proactive. It just feels like every time they do, the Ferrymen have read the book already. They know what's coming up next, and they stop them in their tracks. I mean, how many times have we seen a good gank that gets turned on its head? I'm thinking of LASBRA the last time he shows up in duo. It's an EI Jutsu stun, which are very difficult to connect, into Cyclone with 1 HP dancing around the Bastion. Like, that's so rarely going to go that hard against you as it did for the Dragons. But unfortunately for them, That's every play the Ferrymen have grabbed so far this game. It's 19.5. They knock down the left side Phoenix in the blink of an eye. There's not even a defense from the Dragons here. And it is 10,000, just shy of 10,000 full gold over to the Ferrymen. Luckily, Dragons proactive on the map. Knock down a tier 2 in mid, looking to pressure out, and will knock down a tier 2 in right. So they're not going down without a fight.
I do like that call. I think that they could have defended left side Phoenix, but are able to grab a lot of gold. Remember, Cyno is very fast, and VaporishCoast has to choose an enemy to go to, so let's figure out who he's going to decide. Nothing looks good, but maybe you try your heart against a 1v1 versus Paul, I suppose.
Well, Cyno taken out. Dardez loses life. Paul, you need to hit those shots. Hits the last one. Has to play carefully, though. Still a mage versus a carry, and good jukes coming out from Coast. My God, does go down, but maybe lives a little bit longer than he deserves. Dardez lost his life to these three over in right. The Ferrymen still on the front foot, running down the Dragons' base, knocking down towers where they can.
Yep, tier 2, still getting cooked here. Nika has the defense, but Mike wants to get back, but you can see Aror got silenced out of his ult the first time. Can he connect it this time around? And do they even have the damage to kill Nika if he did? I'm thinking no. Phoenix is probably what they're looking for. Finally, the ult gets dropped, but yeah, the bird is the real target, and CycloneSpin doesn't have many minions to try and connect with, but the archers should look like they'll be enough.
As dancing around, again, has to play carefully. Nika getting some good damage onto Aror. Right side, Phoenix stays alive. Dragons, successful defense there. Jelly, they did lose 2 towers and half the Phoenix. It looks like they might lose yet another. They lost the tier 1 in mid. Paul doesn't have enough with him to push down that tier 2. So reset. With only 30 seconds left, that might be and should be the last we see of this push of the Ferryman's Fire Giant. Good defense, I would argue, and some good calls from the Dragons. Unfortunately, still leaves it just around that 10,000 mark at the end of the FG. So the power play, it's played to the max, and now I'm starting to worry about the fight and team fights specifically for the Dragons.
It's not going to be easy to try and come back from. Unfortunately, LASBRA has been essentially dictated to just a CC bot. Nika, he's got okay poke damage, but yeah, more CC. So you're setting up for Coast and you're setting up for Dardez. Well, Coast has decent itemization online, but only 1 crit item means that he's not really doing that big burst damage just yet. You want, I would say, a solid 3,000 more gold, and still you're not at that point you want to. It's just Dardez, right? You're hoping Maman Brigitte has enough damage to carry you through a team fight or get a pick, and she is very get in, get out. And with Blink and Beads, you're not really getting in and get out. You're probably getting in, trading for a kill if you're lucky, and that's about it. So the Jade Dragons need to play as defensively as possible across the map. Whenever the Styx Ferrymen are on right, you need to be on left, but the Styx Ferrymen are not on right. They are here. Cyno wants to chase down Coast, and remember, Dardez is around the corner. Not a 1v2 you want to take, but Cyno doesn't know.
Cyno tries the knockup, doesn't find it. Dardez is there for the damage into the tower, so you're going to get some shots, but Cyno goes down. Oh my God, Paul
There's the trade.
and Baskin find exactly what they want. Yeah, you're right, 1 for 1. Maybe the best case scenario you can hope for if you're Dardez, although a couple seconds later means that Cyno will technically be back on board a little quicker. Maybe an opening on the right side of the map. It looks like Nika and Mike gonna get jumped on by 3 of the Ferrymen. The Darwing Pillars lower those prots, and the chase is there, and the kills come through. PBM first, and then Nika right after. What a play and setup from the Ferrymen.
And now, all the while, Baskin is just dealing with the rest of the Jade Dragons, making sure they can't go back to base. But the tier 2 tower is not the target. It looks like Fire Giant will be started up here. Coast may be able to grab a tier 2. But I'm thinking Baskin has enough damage to not only stop your back, but force an ultimate after. Is Baskin going to take this 1v1? No. He doesn't seem to care too much. They're going to wait for Cyno to spawn in like some good teammates. Or maybe they didn't even care because they couldn't do it in time. Either way, Fire Giant on all 5. Cyno needs to stop falling for that, though. That's the second time that Dardez has been able to get that kill. You use that Spirit Seize and then follow the Volcanic Lightning. You don't want to get that close to Maman Brigitte unless she's your main target, right? That's been the bait so far. Dardez is like, you know what? I'm going to use Coast as my bait. He's going to use all of his damage on him, and then I come in after for the burst, for the cleanup. Seems like that's happened a few times now. Still, 1-5-9. Cyno's making things happen, but He is almost certainly dying every time.
Yeah, that is the most Cyno's getting active slash line that you
Yep.
get to see, unless sometimes you've got a little more kills. But the 9 assists out of 13 kills, 10 total affected, he is feeling more than fine with a couple of deaths to get his team such a massive lead.
Well, he's all of them.
Yeah.
he is the only one who has died.
Good point.
So you got, I mean, you're like, hey, if I get to look at my stat line and Paul and Cyclone are both 5-0, yeah, I'll be 1-5-9. I can accept that.
If it means Paul, Cyclone, and hell, Baskin is in that conversation.
Yeah, 2-0-4, not bad.
You keep them all deathless. Yeah, more than fine being a 1-for-1 trade. Would not be surprised at this point if he's the one who blinks in to start this fight, honestly. It just depends on where they want to go. Tier 2 and mid still up, so the Ferrymen have something to knock down for some free gold. They've got a little bit of time to play with. The timer is burning, and it feels like they haven't gotten that much done with the FG around their belts.
They definitely haven't. I mean, Cyno pushing right. I mean, I don't hate pushing those minion waves up, but the tier 2 needs to go down, and at this point, with the lead that the Ferrymen have, a Phoenix or 2 should be dropping, right? Cyno and CycloneSpin have runic bombs. This should not be a stall attempt, but look at this. LASBRA was looking for the 1v1, and then he's going to send Coast to ult in to try and help, but now he's just in the back line with a wraparound play. Is he going to go in, or will he just stand in the jungle? Probably just sit back is the call, because the Titan's pushing in. The Styx Ferrymen can leave it alone and just go left with 2 runic bombs. Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, they get 1 Phoenix, right? That should be the call, unless the Jade Dragons come up massive here.
Well, you've got all 5 on left, and the Dragons are slow to respond. They come in. Runic Bomb's going to get some damage out there. Dardez is just gone. Alternate timeline keeps him going, but only for a few more seconds. That's a clean kill for the Ferrymen. Now they step up, get rid of the bird. Maybe try to find a little more damage thrown their way. Cyclone, half, Paul, a little under. Baskin caught out and stunned out, but they've got the Titan now to push with on mid, and the Fire Giant still on all 5. They're going to knock down this bird, and that is 2 wide openings on the base.
They go for the end.
30 seconds without Dardez. They're going to go in. LASBRA seems to be the initial target. Can't quite find him. They've got the Titan. They're throwing out their damage, but it's split a little bit. Paul pressured out on the back. LASBRA killed off in the middle of it all. And now the Titan is the wide open target. Nika goes down, and no Dragons left to defend at full strength. Ferrymen go up 2-0.
And that's a traditional Ferryman game. That is what I am used to at this point. Deathless carries, Cyno trading his life to make things happen, and then Aror just like 0-0 with a bunch of assists. That is the traditional Styx Ferryman gameplay. And considering the draft, they gave up Chernobog, they gave up Maman, and they just didn't seem to care. Like no one told the Ferryman that those are picks that everyone is contesting at the moment.
Yeah.
Sure, they had it last game. You know, Cyclone had his hands on the Cherno, but that was a pretty clinical game there from the Styx Ferrymen.
And it is a lot of that, right? Where there's just these moments at the beginning where it's like, the Dragons are making a proactive call. They're going to get something. Oh, never mind. The Ferrymen just stopped them because they, for lack of a better way to say it, they just played better in some of those scenarios. And I think that moment, that gank onto Cyclone is going to replay in my mind several times. I mean, what a turnaround. And that does really feel like where it starts to fall apart.
Yeah, for sure. I think not only did focusing on LASBRA, who doesn't have beads, and just putting him down early on an Erlang Shen who needs to get active early. And then the failed gank over on left that turns into not just the 1 kill, the 2nd kill as well. That's pretty demoralizing.
That's unfortunate scenario for the Dragons, and even more unfortunate right now they are down 0-2. But look at the positives. Ferrymen are 1 win away from securing themselves a spot at Worlds. We'll find out if they can do it right after this.
should be sleeping, but you didn't know. I wanna feel you closer to my skin. I think about you when my heart is beating, but you didn't know. I wanna feel you, wanna let you in. This is what you do to me. Let's explore this fantasy. I could take you higher than I know you want it. This is all I ask of you. Let me change your point of view. I could love you better than I know you want it.
I know that.
You want it, ooh. You want it, ooh, yeah. You want it, not just for a night. You want it for life, oh. You think about me when you're in the shower. When she's not around, she's beautiful, but I'm beautiful inside. You think about me like every other hour. When she's not around, you wanna know what it feels like to be mine. This is all I ask of you. Let me change your point of view. I could love you better than
Styx Ferrymen find themselves on set point after a dominant Game 2 performance. You've still got Frog, you've still got Inbound bringing you the action on the desk. And man, it feels like they needed a bit of a warm-up game, perhaps, after the 48-minute banger that was Game 1. But maybe they find their way back to form in this game, too. That looked dominant from the Ferrymen.
Yeah, you could tell they all just took some drinks of that Cthulhu Dream Advanced GG. That's
what it was.
They 100% woke up after that one because, wow. They even, I mean, at least for our point of view, top 3 was in favor of the Dragons. And then even with that, the comp around it was another solid comp. It provided all you really wanted. I mean, maybe some tank, true Guardian tank in support, I should say. Obviously, Nox built tanky. But, I mean, first blood goes over to Cyno. Past that, a couple return kills on the Cyno by the Dragons. And then the rest of the game was just the Ferrymen running down the Dragons and just killing them kind of everywhere. And this fight right here was kind of like that massive turning point, even though the Ferrymen were ahead about 2,000 gold. Cyclone baited so hard here, and then just cleanup fight, cleanup kill here, cleanup kill there, solo lane, and then one here for the Chernobog. And past this, it was just all Ferrymen.
Yeah, I mean, Jade Dragons, I think, a total of 5 kills that game. And the Ferrymen, they just, at every opportunity, feels like they really rallied behind this Pele. And I was gonna give Cyno a little bit of talk back. Man is feeding a little bit. 1 in 5. I don't know.
So many deaths.
I know, dude. So how are you gonna? So many deaths. But at the same time, like, I question the Pele a little bit on the deaths. That's my bad, man, because you're building Absolution tanky Pele and just pressing 4 at the beginning of every fight so that the rest of your team can remain deathless. Like, dude, I'll go 2 in 5 every game if it means my carries get to never die. Like, that's the Ferrymen. That's exactly how they drew it up.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible what he was doing. I was a little worried about what the Absolution was going to be doing in this dive, but the Absolution CC immunity allows him to get 2 guaranteed autos off as soon as his ult finishes casting, and he's playing the triple magical comp for the Dragons, and it made so much sense when you saw it, but like seeing it before anything actually happened, you were a little confused. But Cyno's got these little tech plays, and they make no sense until you see him do it, and then it makes the most sense in the world, and you think this guy's a genius.
think this guy. I mean,
No, this guy's a
the
genius.
guy might be a genius.
He's a genius.
The guy might be a genius. Cyno and the rest of the Ferrymen, they put themselves on set point. I mean, what are you looking at for the Dragons to try and adapt here? I will, I'll let the fans know they've chosen second pick here for these picks and bans. So they lose once again. They wanted first pick initially in that second game. Now in this third game, trying to adapt once again. I mean, I just don't know what you do differently necessarily in the picks and bans. You got Chernobog and Maman last game. And, I don't know how you get a better top 3 necessarily, but they're going to second pick to try and do that.
I think something I've been seeing is in these late game team fights, Aror is playing. Well, I guess there wasn't too many late game team fights in the second one. It was a lot of just domination by the Ferrymen. But the late game potential of Aror support picks far outweigh what Mike can do in a lot of these fights. The Yemoja versus the Baron, it's all Yemoja. That's a laning phase and mid game matchup for the Baron. Late game, it's just Yemoja's incredible. And then last game, Nox versus Ganesha. Again, laning phase advantage for Mike. Plays the laning phase well. And then as soon as you get out of laning phase, Ganesha's just doing so much more. So I want to see Mike on something that can impact those late game fights like Aror can do. But talking about that, we can wait on that for a second. We can look at these P's and B's. Ferrymen with Morgan, Poseidon, or the Morgan, Poseidon, Raijin. Dragons banning Chern, Baba, and Athena. And first pick, Puch for the Ferrymen, which is a flex pick. Both Paul and Baskin play it, and it's in a fantastic spot. That god is very strong.
Yeah, Puch, first time making it through picks and bans here after these initial 2 games, and Chern up first pick here by the Ferrymen. Notably, right, still those supports left up on the board. Yemoja available if the Dragons want to go to it. That was something they banned away in game number 2. This time, though, they choose to ban away the Chernobog instead. They let Cyclone have it. They weren't happy with that. They picked it themselves, also were not happy with that. So this time, they ban it away, and they choose to take away the Yemoja. And that's the traditional Guardian pick maybe you were looking for Mike.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fantastic pick. Yemoja's an incredible character. Problem is, you're forced into picking her into a counter matchup. This is such a free matchup for Puch. So much anti-heal. He has the stun when you're healing. And the Ferrymen also have a couple strong picks available. Rat being hovered, Maman also available. Both of these make a ton of sense. It looks like if this is their hover, it seems like Maman mid is also where they would be leaning, or Maman solo, I guess at the minimum, because this would be Rat jungle. I mean, unless Baskin takes the... maybe there's just a ton of flex potential here. Rat can go solo jungle. Okay, well then they switch off of both.
Never mind.
I talked about that for no
They baited
reason.
us completely on the desk. I was going to go to the Maman support. Because I'm telling you.
Still not a fan.
Maman support.
Still not a fan.
Still not a fan. Yeah, I think Aurora is a much bigger fan of this Ganesha
For sure.
support. So you get 2 traditional Guardians in that backline for either of these teams. You get the Pele lock-in once again. Cyno's going to be able to go back to that, be a facilitator pick. And then the top 3 rounds out here with the Kukulkan locked in for the Jade Dragons. And notably, I mean, Maman left to the wayside, not picked here or banned here in the top 3.
Yeah, no Maman yet, and really, if we see Maman, if it goes to the Ferrymen, it's going to have to go either solo or mid. Goes to the Dragons, it's going to have to go into jungle, which we've not seen LASBRA play yet, so curious if we even see a Maman pick this game. But for the bans, Jade Dragons banning away that Vulcan. We saw it game 1 for Paul. Seems like they think the Puch might be slightly more favored to solo lane. And the Ferrymen also ban away that Rat, which is something we have not seen today yet. But it's not like it's not a valuable pick still. It's just getting banned in that second phase, and it's still just going to keep getting banned because it's such a good throwaway, I think, at that spot. So it just makes a ton of sense there.
Yeah, very valuable. I mean, global pressure, initiation, right? We saw adapting on it yesterday, performed to a really high level. So a pick that both of these junglers have gone to in the past. Some of these bans continue to come out, though. Jade Dragons seem a little bit convinced that this Puch is headed towards solo. As you mentioned, they ban away a couple of those mage options that Paul has gone back to in the past. Now, we have seen teams try to ban out Paul before. It hasn't traditionally gone well for them. This is just second phase, though, not like just dedicating everything to Paul. But Styx Ferrymen, they're taking away picks from LASBRA. That Fenrir that we saw yesterday won't be able to go back to that. And my eyes are on something maybe like the Naja. I mean, at this point, the Naja may be a little bit overused in terms of like, oh, just ult combo plus ult and everything. But you got a Kukulkan on your team, man. I mean, you have to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy setup. But now going for that Anhur leaves that Naja pick. Maybe for that 10th slot, it's something where the Jade Dragons maybe are just comfortable leaving up the last jungle because the Ferrymen already have their jungle. They've got this Pele, and the Dragons want to confirm this Anhur for Coast. Because when we talk about the Dragons, you talk about Anhur, how much better Coast's Anhur is than most of his other picks, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Going over to the Ferryman side, Thoth picked by Paul, and Ullr being hovered.
Thoth for Paul here, Ullr for CycloneSpin. Picks that we haven't seen these guys on in maybe a while. I mean, we saw Shinto, I think, on this Thoth yesterday. Looked pretty fantastic on it, just getting a one-shot kill. I remember that highlight onto BMT. And then the Ullr, of course, seen a couple interesting builds from him, but especially after that buff to that ultimate where you get the extra power, we've seen that a little bit more. Okay, all right. I didn't want to get baited by the Kronos hover at all. The Jade Dragons. This Daji hover, perhaps something a little bit more realistic, something we've seen LASBRA on in the past.
Wow.
And right into, I think you see what I'm seeing, it, no CC immune carries in those last two picks for the Ferrymen.
I mean, no CC immunity across the board other than the Pele. There is so many opportunities for LASBRA to make plays on the map. And I want to see him get that Yones online and then just PvP as much as he can, look to pull relics. The problem, I think I see a little bit of a problem with the Jade Dragons comp is they pull relics well, but they don't really have a great opportunity with punishing them. It's not like there is a Blink Fearless, something that if beads are down, you can kill them. It's really just LASBRA, so he's kind of going to have to build in that full cooldown Daji, look to punish beads and then, or look to pull beads and then punish those beads. But there are so many ways to pull those beads with this Daji ult. 4 targets. I mean, even the Ganesha at most of these points. If he doesn't go beads, I expect Cuckoo ults and Daji ults onto this Ganesh early, mid, and late game.
Yeah, I mean, this is a comp maybe a little bit similar to that late game comp we saw yesterday from the Jade Dragons where they had the Kukulkan in the Bastet. And I mean, we were questioning that on the desk yesterday, but I mean, what did the Jade Dragons do? They essentially just said, hey, we have a lot of damage. Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, things don't come through in the team fight as organized as maybe you would want a front-to-back comp to do, but you're not going to out-secure us. We've got Kukulkan. You're not going to out-engage us. We've got the Daji to just get in and get out. I mean, they just have a ton of raw damage for the Dragons comp.
Yeah, I mean, and when you're playing these mage solos, raw damage is really all you need. This is kind of how you want to play your style. The one thing I would say is playing a somewhat reliant on heal comp. You got the Yemoja, you've got Vamp solo laner a lot of the times, and then you're playing into an op wash. It's going to be risky chasing into the op wash. So much area control, so much damage, anti-heal, the stun also. So it's risky, but a lot of times you don't really have to chase. If you can keep your distance well, there's good poke potential. I mean, Cuckoo's not maybe the greatest, but Morgan's got really good poke potential, so that's something you kind of got to look out for, spacing between these two comps. And this is the first game where we don't have a bog. So there's going to be true 5v5, like groupings if it goes late and one team's not blowing out the other. So it's going to be a very exciting 5v5 to see one-shot potential on both sides, especially with these one-shot mage ultimates. I mean, Cuckoo Thoth, one ult just changes the entire fight.
Yeah, I mean, in the Kukulkan game yesterday, you really weren't out-securing a Kukulkan ult, but there's a final judgment now on the other side. There's also a field of corpses that you have to play inside when you're contesting a fire giant like that. So definitely a lot of area control, a lot of raw damage from both of these compositions. Game 3 right around the corner. Backs against the wall for the Jade Dragons. Win or get sent down to try again. We'll throw it over to the casters for Game 3.
Thanks so much, Frog and Inbound. It's Gore, it's Chelly, and it's Doug for Game 3. Ferrymen win 1 and go to Worlds. And Chelly, the thing I'm latching onto, there's a few, but if this is a legacy game for LASBRA, it could go down in history for what he has picked up here. 75-25, though, in favor of the Ferrymen from the Twitch chat. How much weight are you putting on LASBRA here?
Unfortunately for LASBRA, a lot of the weight. I would say the majority of it, right? The Daji has a good portion of the CC. with so many great targets like the Ullr, like the Thoth, like the Outwash, I mean, throw Aurora in there. Sure, Absolution is a thing. Once that gets picked up, LASBRA's job gets a lot more difficult, but until then, I like what Bobby said. Get Jotuns online immediately and then pick someone. Whether it's Baskin or Paul, I don't think it's going to be CycloneSpin. Duo lane's a lot more difficult, but whether it's Paul or Baskin, you got to at least find one kill off of this pal out early on. Not going to be just pull and guaranteed follow-up, right? Sure, if Dardez is nearby, that makes things a little bit easier. But if not, maybe Nika would be there to try and help with the extra DPS. It's not like only LASBRA is going to be able to supply that DPS, but the pull itself should be enough to find one kill if you can get these beads down. That's going to be the mission, and LASBRA knew that when he locked in this Daji.
So a gold in mind for the Dragons, and a win con maybe as clear as day. But Shelly, something else is standing out in my mind, and it's something from yesterday that we got to watch. Unfortunately for the Kings, that was against them, but it was a Thoth ult one-shot.
100-0, yep.
And if I'm remembering correctly, against the Kukulkan as well. So
Yep.
It is definitely something. Admittedly, it was not Paul or Dardez playing them, but that is an ever-present threat the longer this game goes. Right now, Coast is in the ever-present threat. Feels like this is a good fight for the Ferrymen. They go in, they've got some damage, but you have to fall back. Auror's looking for it, and he gets it over. CycloneSpin first blood, but that's all the elephant, and it's all Aror.
It is not easy to find an axe in between 3 minions, but CycloneSpin does it, gets the beads, and Coast just takes way too much damage there. Props to Aror for finishing that kill and gifting it over towards CycloneSpin. That's a disastrous start for the Jade Dragons. You want to see an issue, you want to see someone who's hard to deal with, check Ullr from ahead, especially with this new meta crit build. It is terrifying. If you want to try and just exist near CycloneSpin, you're going to be getting crit very hard, and that could end up being a problem as this game continues. Cyno on the way, does have the blink, but I don't know if they've got the damage to kill. Definitely have the damage to find the beads. One invade and punish from Paul, though, could put Dardez down. I'm amazed. He's standing so close. Dardez, what are you doing?
Oh, roots him. Couple of shots. Oh, Paul. He's off the mark on one. Dardez goes left. Paul shoots right. I can't believe the Dardez is still
One more
alive
chance?
right now.
Paul wants to go for it. No, he can't. There's no way. I mean, yeah, I'm amazed he went. He tried Paul's life is what he did. The only reason you stand that close to a Thoth with your beads down is if you think, hey, you're not going to hit invade and punish, or you're not going to hit all 3 shots of hieroglyphic assault. This time the gamble pays off. Paul did whiff one, but if he didn't, that is the freest solo kill you're going to find. And in this case, still no beats for Dardez for 2 minutes. I'm thinking Cyno might come back when that volcanic lightning becomes available.
Now set up. Wondering, and going to keep my eyes on right, and really going to watch LASBRA, especially over the next, maybe, well, realistically few minutes, but once he hits level 5, that's the big time that Daji suddenly becomes very, very interesting. Beads are down for CycloneSpin, so maybe that'll be the opportunity. LASBRA being able to just run over here, maybe put some pressure on mid, Paul. Anything like that could be a big win for him. But the Ferrymen, they're in a similar position to last game, Shelly, already. With a hefty lead, the first blood early. Getting it against Coast, it feels like this duo lane, this pressure that Coast has been able to do, specifically against his Anhur as well. That has been kind of the Dragon's bread and butter since picking him up. Now, level 5. The question is what LASBRA is going to do with the pressure, knowing that you have a little bit of wiggle room.
He does. I think you probably want to wait until that Jotun's Wrath is online, until you get that extra cooldown before you use the first pal out, because, you know, if you're not ulting Cyclone, you're not pulling someone in. Of course, you could go for Aurora, but you're probably not even killing Aurora if you ult over on the left side of the map. So if you're not ulting Cyclone in the next 2 seconds, you're not getting the beats, you're not getting that kill. So, yeah, you want to just sit back and try and get the full-on beats down. Paul just ults the wave, close to getting Riptide, but Mike doesn't quite grab him.
Dardez.
He'll take it. I mean, you get yourself the wave, get yourself a little bit extra damage, but really, he just didn't want to get caught out by a River's Rebuke.
Absolutely. And, you know, I have to give him credit as well. Like, if we're talking 25 minutes from now, that one shot, so unfortunately for him, that's 4 minutes into the game. So half health, though, for Dardez. I think goes to show where Paul is going to be. And it also brings up a conversation the desk was having, and admittedly, maybe I'm getting too ahead of myself, but like objective-wise, that's going to be a big ultimate up against the Kukulkan. We'll have to see how the Dragons handle that. Now, we do have Jotun's finished for the Dragons, and specifically for LASBRA. Puch is easy to bully. Feels like Thoth is a little harder because of the dash, a leap as well for the Ullr, so maybe right lane. But how do you think Cyno... So realistically, I'm looking at this dodge a lot. I keep going back to it because admittedly, kind of feels like the win condition. It is what the Dragons need. What's the best way to fight against it, right? Not just, okay, is this going to work? You've got your beads, but like, how can Cyno reply to make sure that LASBRA has a rough time?
I mean, the Pele versus Daji matchup isn't one that screams like 1v1 to me, right? You don't really want to go in as Cyno because LASBRA just goes up to the sky, sits there for a bit, calls the team over, and then, you know, you're getting beads or you're forced to ult out. So it's not like Cyno wants to bully LASBRA in particular. I think he makes his job miserable by ruining his follow-up, right? Looking towards Dardez, looking towards Nika, looking towards Coast, and saying, hey, whoever you're pulling, what happens when the carries are behind when they can't do damage? Or what happens when I've already killed them and they can't do damage? That seems to be a better strat than, you know, just looking for LASBRA in the jungle. But so far, LASBRA has not really gone in for any Palas. He doesn't have the opportunity to, because number one, Paul is just poking out Dardez consistently, and number two, you know, Coast has lost a good bit of pressure over in left lane after getting first blooded, so it's not like you can go to mid or left. He's attempted to look towards right lane, but hasn't found much. And even here, like I said, LASBRA can blink in, he can try, but Volcanic Lightning comes through, and that's the end of the engagement, so it's not like you really want to palo.
Might find something on right, and they do, maybe not the intended way. Beads used by Baskin. The trial for the Dragons is going to be if they caught that, because it was at the tail end, and Empty the Crypts was right there, so a lot of audio coming in for the players. If they caught it, there's an easy target now for LASBRA to go for. And poor Coast loses both Baskins, pushed up under his tower. 4 Dragons in the right side jungle. Poor Cyno can't do anything about it, locked up by the River's Rebuke, and that's a jump in from LASBRA first blood for the Dragons. Found here 7 minutes in as they lock down the jungler of the Ferrymen.
I mean, yeah, they're able to kill Cyno there. He had the Volcanic Lightning, but CycloneSpin is sitting over here with Aror. He already got his kill, and he's just going to be able to keep pressuring Coast underneath this tower. This is what the Ullr provides. Wow. Oh, if that axe connected, you're certainly finding beads there up against Coast. But that's the difference maker, right? Mike leaves. Mike rotates out. Aror sits in lane. Sapping farm, sure. Now Aurora's got a 2-level lead, but the difference is Coast got free farm during that. So I think that's going to benefit VaporishCoast a little bit more than CycloneSpin. And Cyno's like, hey, I would have loved to have a Ganesha near me when I was getting Rivers rebuked at my speed buff. It seems like the Styx Ferrymen show they're trying to play through Cyclone here. And, you know, rightfully so. He does have a little bit of extra itemization online. That Transcendence does go a long way. It seems like the Jade Dragons are setting up for a Fury, though, and already they drop the NATO, but since Auror's nearby, they can't commit and they have to back up.
Any vision, Aror? If Paul is alive, I mean, we go back to the conversation we were having game 1 with the Vulcan, then there is chance for a steal, and it is going to come from the mid lane. Paul is in the perfect position to try and do that. Plus, though, it just feels like he's got such a... Well, it doesn't feel like. It's just because he does. Such a long range on every ability. And so something that you have to be worried about. Kind of quiet from the Ferrymen, though, since that first blood. They were pushing almost 1,500 gold. Now they've managed to maintain about 1,000 ahead. Experience, though, as you had mentioned, when they have leads, it's great. But some of those leads aren't as massive as they could be, or they're being outpaced by others on the Dragon. So, roughly even game. 8.5 in invade from LASBRA and crew. Well, in Mike, it should just be. Both potentially looking for something, just screaming in our ears, but not going to go for the shot. It feels like, I feel exactly where you're at. It feels like the Dragons right now are waiting for that opening just for a Fury.
Yeah, and in this case, Cyno once again caught up with the River's Rebuke. Doesn't even have time to go into Volcanic Lightning. Yep. One ult and see you later. That's not even a surprise. That was not a gank that the Ferrymen were unaware of. They walked over a ward. I mean, Cyno was about to all in to VaporishCoast, sees 2 people walk over this exact ward, and goes, okay, I can't step forward, Coast. Gonna take a lot of damage, forced the beads here, but has to be able to jump over the wall, and Aurora doesn't want to drop the Diamond Pillars, wouldn't be able to find that kill. point being, Cyno knew they were there. I don't know why he stepped forward. It's not like that River's Rebuke play is new to him. It already has killed him once.
And not only that, you know, Mike gives us a good reminder, right? Again, we don't get to see Yemoja a lot. Most of the time she's banned against the key supports that look so good on her. But that's the second River's Rebuke that has been exactly placed next to the wall so that there's no escape for Cyno.
Yep.
And this case, the last case, he had to run directly into the Dragons. This time he could have done something. Now he's just getting chased out by LASBRA, has a little bit of help, dodges out the pull from the Powwow, and that's going to be the Serpent of the Nine wins. Paul avoids that one with his beads. So some openings now for LASBRA. Now Jotun's going to be putting in work on the cooldown to try and make sure that this opening exists for the Dragons.
Yeah, that Powwow got a ton of value being able to pull Paul and force the ult from Cyno. No kills happened just yet, though. 2-0 for LASBRA. He's been able, and we said the weight of the world would be on his shoulders, and so far, he's carrying it quite well. Surprised he hasn't looked over towards Baskin at all, but it does seem like to be very annoying to try and kill this Outpost. Just so much healing, so much corpse explosion, as well as just the beads are not going to be getting forced by Nika anytime soon. Still though, remember, VaporishCoast was forced to beads, and Aror is here. One axe could mean the death of this Anhur, so Coast decides to back up and not fight for the shield buff. But we're not addressing the Kukulkan in the room, right? The fact that the Jade Dragons have already tried to pull Gold Fury once. They have fantastic burst, and it's not like Paul can just sit there and charge up Final Judgment.
Yeah.
Any bit of CC can cancel. So it's not like you have ease of, you know, burst control. It's going to go over to Dardez every single time, and once again, Cyno's caught in the river.
That's going to come collapsing down. This time, though, Aror is actually there. The tornado does so much damage, though. Mike gets a stun, and that's the opening. LASBRA needs to jump in now onto the Powwow, looking for the pull in. Forces out, I believe, a beads early. Does not have the follow-up. Serpent of the Nine wins. Does not have anyone to hit. Now LASBRA forced to fall away. Has Coast to teleport to, and gets the dash exactly the way they need. Execution there from the Dragons. But it's only the one kill to show for it. Now they're going to go the extra mile, finally get that Gold Fury, and pull a gold lead for themselves.
Love the rotation in. They knew exactly where to find Cyno once again. This River's Rebuke has been ridiculously successful so far. I mean, just any time you can find that wall, it's going to come in clutch. LASBRA this time around was there to finish that kill, go up into the Powwow, stall. I thought the rotation from Baskin might have been the death there for LASBRA, but had the juke shoes, had someone to run to, and is able to get out for free. There is a 3-0 bounty on his head, and all things considered, Cyno has been able to keep up XP-wise in the jungle. But you still got to think that farm is a bit annoying at this point. You want that itemization online. Cyno doesn't know exactly where LASBRA is, and almost certainly goes down here.
Knock
It's
up.
close.
Used to the almost there. Oh
Cyno!
my god, the shots. Yeah, he's going to lose his life, but who cares? He got the 1v1 against LASBRA. Well played by Cyno.
That build differential is insane. He just finished Erendite. It was Brawlers and Tier 2 Erendite versus Jotun's Hydras, and LASBRA initiates that fight. That is ridiculous. I thought LASBRA would go up into the sky a lot earlier. He just held the Powwow for so long. That's a 3-0 shutdown and revenge kill. Yeah, Cyno takes that every day of the week.
Gives him an Erentite, gives him a very, very healthy spot to be in. And now Shelly, that actually resets the gold lead right back to neutral. So the Dragons have the kill lead. Maybe have a little bit of work to do here on the map to try and pull anything else back in their favor. Experience-wise, the check-in, it's just a little bit ahead for Nika, but pretty ahead for Aror, still soaking up a lot of farm. We're getting to mid-game 3v3 fights, but also team fights around like pyros, fires, etc. Is it only around Powwow? Like, can the Dragons? Well, I guess we've seen the River's Rebuke. So is it those two? You know, now that we have a Phantom Shell online, 15 seconds until that's up for Aror. Like, how are the Dragons engaging these fights, and how are the Ferrymen supposed to handle them?
Yeah, I'm thinking the Powwow is not going to be the engage. It's just not LASBRA's strategy. He loves running to the backline. He loves blinking in first. It's going to be Mike, right? It's going to be a Riptide. It's going to be a River's Rebuke, and then follow up afterwards. But when Mike finds that ult, LASBRA's going to already be, you know, hiding in a back camp waiting to, you know, wrap around. That's kind of the idea here for the Jade Dragons. Attempted Pyromancer pull, but Aror was there. Gotta love that peace of mind of knowing, hey, they could go in for an objective, and we need to be on point with stopping it or at least showing face. And that's exactly what Aror has been doing. And that's exactly what Mike has been doing. Looking for the Riptides, pulls the Magi's from Aror, says, hey, now you don't have any CC immunity for a minute. LASBRA could have a target. And already, look, he wants to go from behind. He wants to wrap around. Let's see if he finds anything.
Pyromancer pulled, then dropped by the Dragons, now picked up by the Ferrymen. It's slow roll as of right now. They don't have a full amount of damage. But look at Cyclone. Well, was running towards right, now goes back to left, which maybe changes the pace of what was about to be a fight. Now, nothing's going to happen over there. A couple minutes before we get the beacon back. And Trelli again, mostly neutral state. I want to say this might be some of the longest times, at least this set. We've had all of the towers still standing, as well as stayed this even. So that Pyromancer and to this upcoming Primal Fury feels like there's a little extra weight on them because finally whoever gets them can leverage a small bit of a lead.
They certainly could. Vision in favor of the Ferryman for now on the left side of the map. There is just one more that Cyclone walks over. Looks like a possible scrap that could be happening towards Primal like immediately. We haven't seen this for a while. Back in the day, it was always, hey, if we're behind, we'll just go for Pyro, you go for Primal Fury. But teams have been showing up and trying to defend pretty consistently. We already mentioned Dardez and his insane burst. Looks like he's going to go back to base and finish up that Staff of Mirrodin. Once it's finished, I wouldn't hate it if the Jade Dragons grouped up and went for a pull towards this Primal Fury. I mean, Coast is level 16. He's got 3 items to his name. The Spirit of the Nine Winds is here. Dardez is going to be nearby at all times. So going in for a pull, not the worst idea, at least to try and bait out the Ferryman and see if they can step forward, see what they'll respond to, or maybe even a damage check. But it looks like the Pyro is a little bit more low stakes, and Nika's even here to zone. This should go down pretty freely unless Paul's nearby.
Well, it doesn't look like they're going to step up, so Dragons clean Pyromancer, and not too much punishment after the fact. Looking down at builds right now, and you can see, I think, of a lot of similarities that we've been seeing lately, right? You know, a lot of good pin for Paul. He's looking to one-shot a little bit later. You've got some crit now online for CycloneSpin, which maybe opens up a little bit. Coast just now starting up a crit tree. But as is usual when Cyno's in the game, it's his build that catches my eye, which mainly is, you know, you had mentioned it, you've got the Brawlers, you've got the Erendite. Going into some prots now, into more defense, do you like that case for the Pele?
Yeah, he's just going to run the Absolution again, right? That's the strat he went for last time. There's even more CC that he has to worry about this time around. I thought it was going to be Aror that went towards it, but Aror just gets a Magi's, goes a little bit more selfish until he can upgrade towards Magi's Shelter. It's just keep Paul, keep Cyclone from getting pulled by LASBRA. That is the strat, and I think it seems like a smart enough call. Jump away. LASBRA was nearby. Wanted to be able to follow the Trickster Spirit after that, but doesn't go for the dive under tower. That is a 3-level differential, and Fail Not's online. I'm telling you, these Hydra's crits that could come through, very rare, but still, every once in a while you're going to see them, especially with the Hydra's proc. LASBRA doesn't want to be caught on the mean end of those. And that was no crits.
That was no crits, just damage. Well shot. That Hydra's proc, honestly, really showcasing there more than anything. Well executed by Cyclone, and it goes to show, I think, the big difference an Axe can make in the middle of these fights. Cyclone might need that here. Misses the stun. Onto Coast, leaves a roar behind, but the dash from the Elephant is going to get him just fine. Ganesha, no worries yet. Primal Fury, pulled by the Dragons. Cyno spots it out, sees it's going on. It's Nika v Paul over towards the right. Spirit of the Nine Winds confirms the Fury, but the fight is on the Ferrymen. They're going in, and they want blood. Cyno's looking for kills, spreading lightning damage everywhere he can, but no one is there to follow up. He goes down, and Cyclone brings in the broom. Double kill, cleanup kills, and the chase is still on. Paul keeping Nika distracted, or maybe Nika keeping Paul distracted, as they chase down the rest of the Dragons. The Ferrymen clean up one more, and they've traded 2 for 3. LASBRA, Nika, low health bars, but so are Aror and Paul. They have to fall back, lose the Fury, go up in kills.
Yeah, you could tell Baskin still wanted to go in, and Nika had some good damage, but Paul juked out so much, able to hold on to both relics. Nika was able to do a lot in that fight, but does not find the kill, and actually forced to Aegis because of the damage that comes through. Unfortunately, that's Dardez's role here, right? He needs to be close enough to insta-hit Spirit of the Nine Winds, confirm the Fury, and then whatever happens, happens. In this case, he's going to lose both relics and fall. Jade Dragons still come out ahead after an engagement like that. But if that's their plan consistently, the Styx Ferrymen have to work out a solution, right? Is it going to be go on Dardez immediately? Is it going to be kill him before a Fire Giant pull, or try and CC him? Baskin doesn't have that same level of dive, but Cyno could close gap. You just don't want to use that ultimate and then get within melee range of a Cuckoo, because you're getting hit by Spirit of the Nine Winds if you ult in. And Fire Giant's already started up. The ult's back up. Dardez has the confirmation.
And Roar spots it out. Paul's going to be nearby, so there's going to be some contest for this. As the Fire Giant already half health and dropping lower. Tornado onto Aurora. Dharmic Pillars were dropped. Mike left alone. There's the Crypts. They're emptied and they're slowing him down. Paul finds Coast. Maintains his ult. Fire Giant is at half. You're going to pick it up just fine if you're the Ferryman. You need the damage to burst it. You've got the 4v5. Where are they going to position themselves to try and fight? Looks like instead, drop FG, ignore it, go towards mid. Farm up, maybe bait the Dragons in. River's Rebuke locks down Aurora. Shot from Paul onto LASBRA. Causes some trouble. Aurora's going to get pulled in by the Palace, so is Cyno, but the chase might be on. Spirit of the Nine Winds just a little bit too late, and Cyno goes in, isolates, lockdown, damage onto Mike. It's a slow burn, but a burn nonetheless. They kill him off and set themselves up for success. Pyromancer right on the horizon.
Yeah, Pyro gets pulled. Paul is on zone duty this time. He's got plenty of range to make sure Dardez and Nika can't step forward. And the Pyromancer goes down. Second Runic Bomb in play this game goes over towards Cyno. And what a back and forth brawl. I mean, I love the call from the Jade Dragons. I never hate these attempts at Fire Giant, right? Just to see a bit of a damage check. You guys have this warded? Are you going to step forward? Aurora, though, plays it perfectly. Drops Dharmic Pillars, forces out VaporishCoast immediately. Says, hey, there's your DPS, gone. Then works on the burst, goes towards Dardez, and now the Ferrymen are able to walk forward. Doesn't seem like they want to go for the pull. In fact, they're running past Fire Giant. If anything, they're looking for Nika. Not sure they get much. The ultimate is all that Nika really needs to use to get away from Aurora at this point. But they just show they know how to respond when that pull is done, right? Dardez knows, I need to stay safe. My life is the most important when a Fire Giant is nearby, and I cannot use that ult wastefully. I better be getting a one-shot or saving it for confirmation.
Paul doesn't realize he's getting collapsed on. Good dash. Gets him to safety. Cyno and Aurora, the safety net. Make sure that everything is going to be A-okay. We're still looking about a minute, a little under a minute for the last beacon. Titans could spawn up. Trelly, we've got 11 towers still on the board right now. All except the tier 1 and right for the Jade Dragons left standing. And the ever-present threat, really the Dardez and I think that Paul pose. Maybe Cyno is under right now. LASBRA goes in, forced to use the dash just to get away. The ult down. Means a lot of damage from Cyno going to be gone. 70 seconds until that comes back up. And again, a window for the Dragons to maybe play aggressive.
Beacon goes the way of the Ferryman. They're going to send Titans down mid lane. Not forced into too much there, right? I mean, Cyno did ult out. That's a big deal, but it wasn't like the Jade Dragons used too much to try and chase him down. They're going to be happy with getting that ult for essentially nothing. I guess Coast ulted as well, but maybe so. Just to find a little bit of damage there. With Beacon's down, now it's an awkward situation, right? Gold Fury's up, Fire Giant's up, Burst is there, and Titans sieging through mid. It's going to be a coin flip between, all right, do we go for an immediate pull? Do the Jade Dragons try and defend? Do you go in for a Titan push? I mean, the Ferrymen are here, all 5 on the Fire Giant. No one going for the pull, though. They're just looking to bait. They're looking to see if the Jade Dragons will step forward. And the Styx Ferrymen, they've got no sort of fear in their body. They're deep in the enemy jungle.
Last time they sought out Nika, and they pulled Nika's ult, both relics. Well, they're up for everybody, actually. Just the Bracer down for Aurora right now. They pull the Fire Giant again, trying to go for a bait. The Dragons just don't seem to be biting today. And will not be going in on that fight. Instead, Titans are going to clash in mid, and you've got the 5v5 full-on setup. All it takes is one stray shot from Paul, a great ult from Dardez, LASBRA with a combo. This one could be interesting. Tornado thrown down. The Titans clash. Cyclone just looking for an axe at any point to get a stun.
There it goes.
There's the shot. Oh my god, LASBRA's health bar almost completely gone. 90%ed. But nobody else is there to do the last 10. He's going to make it back to the base. Paul's ult is down. The Dragons stay safe under their tier 1.
Yeah, I mean, that was a red pot diff or a fire giant or that last item, but not enough for the 100-0. Paul knows he needs one more item now before he wants to, be able to kill LASBRA off the ult like that. But Jade Dragons step forward. They know Final Judgment is down. It's just so difficult to go in for a pull here. Mike, level 14. Aror dashes in, takes some good damage, and now he's stuck in the river.
Well, there's going to be Spirit of the Nine Winds, locks him down exactly where you need. Auror's gone, but Cyno deep into the back looking for the Kukulkan, tries to find him, but with the help from Coast, Dardez stays alive. The carries come together, and the Dragons hold their own. 2 kills for none. Pyromancer, started by the Ferrymen, of all people. They drop it at half. Fire Giant, going to be a dangerous pull. Paul will have his ult in just a few moments. It seems like the Dragons are going to play it safe. They've got 20 seconds without Aror, 25 without Cyno. And that's plenty of time to try and start a Fire Giant.
They can try. It's not going to be easy, though. It's going to be a lot on LASBRA try and zone. Baskin, tanky, has relics, can step forward. It's just get in, drop Dardez's ult, and get out. But who's going to CC Paul? It's got to be LASBRA.
Baskin leading the way. You get a blink from LASBRA, but it goes opposite direction of Paul. He goes in for Cyclone, finds the kill, and then Paul can't get the ult off. The damage is there. Late beads and late life sent down into the ground. Baskin goes down as well. Nothing the Ferryman can do. Fire Giant to the Dragons.
Wow, I mean, Paul could have just beads and walked out, but it looked like he really wanted to charge up that ultimate there. The Jade Dragons, LASBRA, does exactly what he needs to make sure that fire pull goes his way. Now tier 2 tower, the Jade Dragons have it on 5, and they're stepping forward. There's no way Cyno wants to go in. They might be even looking towards an end here, Gore. There's some long spawn timers.
Still over 20 seconds on everybody. Cyno in the back, goes in with the ult. He's looking to crush through whoever he can find, but there's too much damage on the other side. 4 of the Ferrymen down, and the Dragons say, we will not go down this easily. They fight back here in game 3 and send us to at least 4.
Wow, 26 minutes that time around, and I mean, I hate to say it, but that was a massive jungle diff. Cyno could not get anything rolling there, whereas LASBRA found so much success. Nika on this Morgan Le Fay as well was able to find not only incredible amounts of CC, but the range, the damage was so consistent as well. And you saw Cyno blink to the backline. He couldn't even do half of Dardez's HP, whereas LASBRA was able to kill Cyclone, pull Paul in, confirm that kill as well, make sure that fire is uncontested, and then just run it down mid and end the game.
We looked at the Daji, maybe not as explosive as I thought it was going to be, but pretty damn near
it took a while, but he got there.
Yeah, running, had to get the build up for it. And then it's just knocking them down. And the Dragons, again, gold lead experience, it stayed close for a long time, but it feels like those small openings, those small windows created by LASBRA really are what knock the door down.
And not only that, Mike focused out Cyno so hard from the get-go, right? 3 Rivers Rebukes in a row, slow down that early game, catch him, force the Phantom Shell. At that point, it doesn't even matter. You're so far behind, and LASBRA was on point and said, you know what, now it's my time to shine. You stunted the early game, I got late game.
Well, the Dragons say they are not out yet. The Ferrymen still only need 1 more to secure a spot at the SWC. We'll have to see what happens right after this.
Inbound, do you know where you're going to be in 56 days? Do you have plans?
I'm going to be watching some SMITE in the crowd.
I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there too. If you don't have any plans in 56 days, I'll tell you where you should be. You should be at the SMITE World Championship happening in 56 days. Come this January. That's what these teams are fighting for right here, trying to qualify to that SMITE World Championship. And we got some fantastic stuff for that event as well. If I've heard correctly, we got some fancy merch right around that corner. Look at that logo for the SMITE World Championship Season X, the pretty colors and the card arts, of course, some of those past SWC skins. Bobby, what's your favorite SWC skin from the past?
Oh, it's the Chang'e. I like the bunny.
Dude,
bunny's cute.
The bunny's cute. It's
Yeah,
hard.
I like the
It's that.
bunny.
No, it's totally fair. You can see Zeus. You can see Afro there on those shirts. Tons of great Smite merch available. shop.highrestudios.com/SWC. Make sure you pick up that SWC merch so you can be walking in with the swag in the door from day one. I know that merch line last year was out the door.
It was long.
Yeah, you want to have your stuff before you walk in. Here, though, the teams are trying to qualify to get there. And the Styx Ferrymen, they were on match point. They weren't able to close it out in there in that Game 3. The Jade Dragons, they fight back. They push us to 4.
And I like to see the fight back from the Dragons. The first game, it was a close game. The Dragons actually had a lead. Late game, though, they fell. Game 2, blowout. This third game, kind of maybe expected Ferrymen to continue rolling, but this game was, for the most part, a lot of Dragons. Maybe a couple plays here or there by the Ferrymen, but I mean, highlight right here, this god. Daji was such a good pick into what the Ferrymen wanted to do. So many opportunities to make plays. He was just one-shotting. It wasn't even like about the ult at some points. He was just one-shotting with just like the auto-attack cancel on the 1 and a couple of the 2 ticks.
Yeah, I mean, you give credit to the god, of course. Have to give credit to LASBRA as well as an individual. We talked about him on the beginning death segment as the initiator, the facilitator for this team. And that game certainly had the tools to try and do it. And then you get a little bit of a lead onto the Dragons, and you see the power come through from this Kukulkan. You sort of secure the objectives, you secure the kill there onto the Titan at just 26 minutes. Into this one, they didn't need to wait for you to get there into that late game. The damage you get, coast onto a comfortable pick. You have, I don't know if it's a legacy game. Gore called it out at the beginning of the cast that we could potentially see a legacy game here from LASBRA. He is a great game. The Daji definitely looks good, but I mean, this is something that if you're the Ferryman, if I'm the Ferryman, I am looking to answer it back, not necessarily on field. I'm really looking to shore up those picks and bans because Daji getting in their 10th pick is almost dangerous that you can let that through that late.
Yeah, highlight the Daji into their comp more than anything. Daji, worth a pick when there's this many CC immune or non-CC immune ultimates.
Right.
I mean, you saw the Thoth, you saw the Ullr, maybe slightly surprising also for the Ferrymen. And then the 10th pick, Dragons, this Daji, it is exactly what the Dragons wanted. And to touch on it, they didn't even play the comp to this fullest potential. The Daji Cuckoo combos were not there. I think we saw one. We saw one combo, and it was onto a Ganesha. Other than that, this is just Daji playing her own game, getting picks, and then Cuckoo playing his own game, securing objectives, and then getting a bunch of damage out. Unfortunately, he gets no kills, but still was getting a good amount of damage across. And I think I've seen enough from this Cuckoo also where I like Dardez on Cuckoo. I think I see it. Maybe not yet like the Morgan and the Hera, maybe not that high tier, but like in that next slot for him, I really do like this.
Wow.
And they do too.
Yeah, Styx Ferrymen, they don't like playing against it. The first ban away will take that Kukulkan. Notably, Ferrymen, they lose game number 3, so they get their choice. They choose to go back to first pick, but this is the same pick order that we had in game number 3. And notably, I mean, I'll call back on it, one more time. We'll see if we get it here. No Maman Brigitte picked or banned in game number 3, so already off that 100% pick ban ratio for the weekend. But as these bans come through, we've seen sort of a different target every single ban, right? Game 2, it was Yemoja. Game 3, we try and take away some more of those priority picks from Paul, and then we let the op wash through, right? And then Game 4 now, you just let the op wash through, maybe considering doing it again if you're the Jade Dragons. But the Styx Ferrymen, they're like, hey, you won with Kukulkan, you cannot have it back.
Yeah, I think that Kukulkan is a good throwaway ban. A lot of the bans that the Ferrymen ban on this first side are more throwaway bans. So far, we have the Baba from last game, we have the Raijin, and we also have the Poseidon. all three available, and I like all three as potential first picks for the Ferrymen. It kind of leads it on over to the Dragons to make the decision where, do you want to play against Raijin or Baba? And if you don't ban either, it's a trade. And either way, you have Raijin in solo lane, and actually looks like a trade because there's still a lot of valuable gods up.
Yeah, this is the first one where they have not banned away that Baba Yaga. Apwash available as well, Raijin, as you mentioned, Morgan Le Fay. All of these power picks potentially. Chernobog does get banned away, Yemoja taken away at those two supports. We haven't seen Athena all set, in addition to that Poseidon and the Morgan. Those have been staying banned. But this game in particular, we see those target bans come through. And the drum roll is on for that first pick. It's the Apwash that the Ferrymen choose to go back to.
And I liked what the Apwash did, but it didn't do enough to get that first pick value. And I think a lot of it comes down to the comp draft that around it that the Dragons had. I'm fine going back to this Apwash. Just keep in mind, if you draft a lot of non-CC immune ultimates, that Daji in the second half, Laz will happily take. So Apwash for the Ferrymen. On the opposite side, Jade Dragons have a bunch of available mages. And Morgan is locked in already. Raijin also available.
Wow.
And Vulcan hovered.
Second pick, Vulcan, a top 2 for the Jade Dragons when Baba Yaga is available. They don't.
And Raijin, which Dardez has played.
Yeah, that's surprising to me. They choose to take the Vulcan here up in the top 2, wanting to, I think, 1, make sure that Paul doesn't go back to it, but 2, maybe trying to make sure Dardez can sort of facilitate that same style of play. You get the big Cuckoo ultimate, just wanting to make sure that Dardez can have a god with that secure potential, maybe doesn't want to go into the Thoth this early.
I think that's 100% it. I think they've kind of feel a lot more comfortable when they have some semblance of confirm, and Vulcan is really the last one up where, I mean, we've seen Thoth, but it doesn't look nearly as good as that Vulcan did. So that's what the Dragons opt for. Ferryman on the opposite side, Cyno going back to that Pele again, and Raijin hovered for the Ferryman. Kind of similar to last game. They had the Puch, they had the Pele, but instead of that Ganesha, they go for the Raijin. I mean, Raijin's better than Thoth. When I think of Raijin, I think of Paul a lot more than I think of Thoth with Paul. So I like this Raijin a lot more. But it's interesting to see how this played out with Vulcan getting so much prio. That's kind of what it comes down to.
I think I mean, that's true, right? I agree with you there. I'm a little bit surprised that Cyno goes back to this Pele. I think that, especially with the Ratatosker being up, the Maman being up, even facilitator picks that he's gone to in the past being up, interesting for Cyno to continue to go back to this, especially with the high death games that he's had. Been a facilitator, wants to engage, certainly still trying to make it work. On the top 3 though, Jade Dragons rounded out with this Aphrodite, something PBM has liked to go back to over and over again. Hasn't gone to it this set, hasn't been banned at all from him. He's had the option the entire time, but this game 4, the first time he's deciding to pull it out.
And thinking back to just the desk segment, we kind of touched on wanting Mike on big Guardians that have big teamfight potential. Aphra doesn't really have that. They're going for that different style. This is the other Jade Dragon style where it's play through duo, get Coast ahead, give him something that can give him some survivability in this Aphrodite, and then that's the lane we want to play through. And it's worked before. This is 100% one of their working styles, so I like it, but it's risky when you think about late game and you think about what the Ferrymen have in this late game potential, Pele, Raijin, Apwash. It's risky in my opinion.
Yeah, 26 minutes in game number 3, the Jade Dragons are able to close it out. Aphrodite, I think, makes that a little bit harder to do. You want to play maybe a little bit later if you're not getting that overwhelming duo pressure. But Jade Dragons, they grab that duo lane in that 3rd and 4th pick slot, so holding on for that jungler. Last pick more than likely. The Ferrymen looking to grab their duo lane in these last couple of picks as well. The Charon and the Hachiman locked in. Charon, not something I believe I've seen Aror play, if my memory is serving me correctly, but does seem like maybe a shift in style, if you will, from the Yemoja, Ganesh backline supports to this Charon, maybe bringing a little bit more aggression.
Yeah, Charon likes to play a little bit more aggressive in that neutral, and then Yemoja and Ganesha are a little bit more defensive in the neutral game. But, I mean, you look at what the Ferryman comp wants to do. These are all backline gods, but they have some semblance of aggression in their kit. Opwash has a bunch of area damage that goes forward. Pele, obviously a dive character. Raijin can dash in, also has the ultimate for good damage and good CC. And then Hachiman to round it all up. Think about like dive hunters. Hachiman is kind of up there in that list of like Rama, Hachiman, Chernobog. They have potential to dive, so you kind of see how the Ferryman comp is rounding up. And then the Jade Dragons with their last pick, something for LASBRA. And it's not going to be easy to dive this Ferryman comp. And already hovering that Mercury. We've not really seen this, but this is a god that can dive with the best of them because you don't need to sit there and auto-attack 7 times or throw out 7 abilities. You get in there, you one-shot, and you try to get out.
I think that's where LASBRA has been finding the bread and butter in these last couple of games, where he has found success. It's been on gods that he can get in and deal damage fast out. Maybe have a little bit of survivability. He did it on the Daji in Game 1, did it on the Fenrir yesterday. We've seen him do it on the Ratatosk or the Pele in the past. This time, not going to be the Mercury, will be the Camazotz instead. Something that has a lot of success diving, and my head immediately goes to maybe another link target for the Aphrodite.
Yeah, potential link target. That's a really strong 2v2, lot of damage, good survivability. I'm just not in the boat of Kama being a great god. I think he's very mediocre in what he does. All he brings is damage and self-survivability. But you look at kind of the comp he's diving, kind of makes a lot of sense. You dive onto the Pele, you can avoid a lot of her abilities. You're diving onto the Opwash, not really someone you want to be diving too much, but you can trade a little bit and get out. And then if you actually look at the late game, Hachiman, very hard to chase down, but Kama's got very good chase potential, and Charon really has no peel potential when Kama's actually diving that backline when he goes into that bat out of hell. So, interesting final pick. Not a god that I do love, but it makes sense into the comp.
Yeah, I mean, you also get to avoid a lot of that area control, right? I mean, Raijin, he's throwing out the drums, you can just fly overhead. Big field of corpses, you can just fly right above them, and dodge everything. You can even dodge the wave coming from Charon.
By flying overhead.
By flying overhead, bat out of hell. But no, I mean, this composition comes through from the Dragons. My eyes are still glued to these mages, right? Your top 3 for the Dragons, it's all mages and all picks that we've seen before other than this Vulcan, which is new to Dardez, at least, not in his career, but in terms of this weekend. We see the Vulcan for the first time this set, and I wonder if it's the Dragons just saying like, oh, he played Vulcan? Yeah, that's probably pretty good. We could play it. Or if it's something that the Dragons have like legitimately practiced and potentially cooked up.
Yeah, I mean, it might be his 3rd pick after this Cuckoo. Like, we saw the Cuckoo banned away for this game, and that Vulcan kind of seemed priled, like that's his next god, and he wants to go and get it. But I think if it was more of a takeaway ban, I think you would have probably seen it drop to that 3rd pick, and then just see the Baba, because you expect Paul to pick Baba over Vulcan, but I mean, that's even something surprising. No Baba here. Yeah. So this is kind of like a different mid-lane matchup that we didn't really expect with so many mages left open.
I mean, you're looking at these team compositions. 5 gods locked in for both. Backs up against the wall still if you're the Jade Dragons, whereas Ferrymen, 1 win and you get to Worlds. Do you think the Dragons are pushing us to 5 with this composition, or do you think the Ferrymen close it out here?
I think we're going 5. I think this Jade Dragons comp does what it needs to do well. I think they've drafted secure, which is something that they really default back to. But I do think a little bit of it comes down to, can Dardez play as effective as Paul did on this Vulcan? Maybe not as well, but nearly as well. Can he confirm objectives? Will he position well enough? Because Vulcan is a different mid laner than a lot of the other gods. Very short ranged in his base kit.
Game number 4. Dragons trying to push us to 5. Ferrymen trying to push themselves to Worlds. We'll throw it over to the casters, Gore and Trelly.
Thanks so much, Frog and Inbound. And that's right, 1 win still stands in the way between the Ferrymen and a guaranteed trip to Worlds. Trelly could come down to just this. Of course, Gore Trelly. And it's going to be Doug, as we have a quick pause here at the front of the game. A lot of mages in this one, which isn't too uncommon. But here's the uncommon thing. If I caught that glimpse just right, Trelly, before we pulled out to look at the Dragons, that was an Opwash mid for Paul.
Oh, they never go Pwash twice in a row. You got to switch that one up to give to Paul. I figured that was going to be the call, especially with Raijin. Paul is not a Raijin player. He's well aware of damage Raijin, how much damage he can do, but also how easy it is to be caught out. Outwash is a little bit different in the fact that you already know that you don't have an escape, so you have to position in that way. So, yeah, I figured Paul would have wanted to take that Outwash at this point. Can match that burst of the Vulcan if you stack up like a bunch of corpses. Kind of hard to do, but if you get a ton down, then yeah, you can sort of just sit around and try and match that burst potential.
Now, another thing that stood out to me towards the top, and there's going to be God conversations, I think, through the next few minutes. But, also starts Aegis, actually a lot of Aegises at the very beginning as opposed to beads, which is what we're used to. Is that jungle pressure? Is that support pressure? Like, why Aegis over beads in these scenarios?
It's just a lack of CC. What are you worried about? Cyno's knockup or Auror's wave? That's about it, right? Everything else is just going to come naturally from DPS, so I can see why Aegis is just a lot more prioed there. I mean, Paul's going to bring some slows, but again...
wow. That's a cold-blooded killer in there, bro. You might need that in mean beads.
I mean, yeah, but the damage is going to be more important than the
Good
CC
point.
here. That's the big difference maker, right? Sure, Aurora can row through you and root you, but are you beadsing the root or are you aegis the damage that comes after the root, right? I think that's the idea. And Paul's been doing this for a while, right? This has just been a strat that he loves to go to, especially when you're up against something like Vulcan. You can beads the meatball, but Earthshaker's still going to hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Aegis just works out a little bit better there.
Well, this one's, again, an interesting dynamic for these two teams. Dragons, first off, they're used to being the team that is reversed swept, not trying for the reverse sweep. And so some pressure on them winning this game and the next would also guarantee them a spot at Worlds. Pressure on the Ferrymen to try and find exactly what they have. As we jump back into game here, we've already seen Nika on the Morgan Le Fay. Baskin, of course, we know what he can do on Raijin. You were mentioning Paul specifically here on the Opwash. 62-38, which is not quite the lowest it has gotten, but almost there for the Ferrymen. And so now I'm going to talk about the one that stands out maybe the most. We see it every now and then, but Camazot's picked up for LASBRA. How are you feeling about Camazot's in this meta, the way like SMITE is right now?
I love me some Camazots. I think if you're on point with Vampire Bats, which is the big what if, it's the most important ability in the kit to connect. It gives you your slow, it gives you your heal, it gives you that bit of damage. If you can hit that consistently, then you just get overwhelming safety, great poke, the Hydra's procs you can weave in, just do a lot of damage. But it's all about hitting that ability. If not, you lose just so much value of your kit. Whereas Pele, you've got range poke, you've got CC, you've got CC immunity and like movement speed, so she has a lot of easy to act on damage. Whereas, I guess the only skill shot would be Volcanic Lightning, and we've seen those whiff for sure. But all you have to do is hit your knockup first, and it sets up for it quite nicely.
Suddenly, yeah, everything becomes a lot easier there. I'm also really intrigued by the duo lane. Coast very often is able to get the Anhur. Has a lot of other gods in the pocket, just hasn't needed to play them because who's going to be banning the Anhur when there's so much else that's controlling the meta right now? And so, on a comfort pick, Mike goes to the Aphrodite, which I always see as hit or miss. But it does feel, and again, Charlie, I'm going to apologize because I'm getting super far ahead of myself here, but this is a comp that looks like it's going to be really fun until you start to have to siege, and then suddenly you're going, who's the tank? Who's the one who's going to like step in to lead everybody in there? Because Mike, you don't want to lose him instantly, and you don't really want the Aphrodite having to hold on to like a Phoenix at 25 minutes and tank it as many shots as you can.
Yeah, I mean, think about ease of engage, right? When you look at this composition, when you look at what the Jade Dragons have drafted here, let's imagine in a perfect world they're ahead and they want to start a fight. It's a kiss from Mike, maybe. You got LASBRA blinking to the backline and hitting a slow. And Nika, none of these Morgan Le Fays have been going blink. I think it is, one of the best engages you can get, but I don't think Nika's going to go because he doesn't have beads, so it's not going to be that. Maybe you hit a fear. It's just not going to be easy, whereas it's not like the Styx Ferrymen have that much ease of engage as well. They've got good chase down potential. The River of Styx can certainly chase down, but when you see it coming, when it's a telegraphed engage, that's going to be relatively even to either juke out or immune, thanks to PolarBearMike and that ultimate Undying level. Make sure that that's not the greatest CC tool either. So CC not the biggest this time around. That's why we see so many Aegises, because it's just a lot of damage, a lot of sustain for both of these teams. ease of engage is important around Fire Giant, and I'm not sure either team is really winning in that regard, but if I had to give the edge, it would definitely go to the Ferrymen.
Now, well, first off, purple buff invade attempt. It's going to spawn here in a few seconds, but Cyclone spotted out, actually stunned. Good pillar as well from Coast. Just shy of being able to get a first blood. Great damage and great presence from the Dragons. They're going to go for the purple. That leaves Aror to stand here, do their best. Cyclone as well, a couple of long-range autos, but it's going to be secured and stolen by the Dragons. Which leads me to the question I wanted to ask Shelly, which is this Charon. We saw, once yesterday. I believe the Ravens played it. So how much is the pick something that Aror is going to because he thinks it's powerful? And how much of it is just because it's the mascot?
I'm guessing not a lot of it because it's the mascot. When your opportunity to go to Worlds this easily is on the line, I don't think you're picking it because it's your team's namesake. I think Aror feels, number one, very safe on this god, and that can be a big difference maker. Charon, very rare that you're going to catch him out of position because of how much movement, how much CC immunity, and how much CC he can provide. And number two, it just seemed like the Ferryman needed some sort of poke damage, some sort of initiation to the fight, and Charon can provide that. Issue being, of course, it's sometimes very telegraphed. That River of Styx, like we talked about, it's very slow moving. And Aror just has not been one to really jump on the mage train, right? Like a lot of other supports, I would say most supports we've seen so far are, leaning more towards these mage supports. That's not Aurora's style. We see the Ganeshas, the Ares, the Charons, like he is sticking with Guardians through and through.
And in a world where we're talking ease of engage, maybe that's the reason, right? Is you have the ease of engage compared to some of the teams. I mean, comps we saw yesterday in the Levi's King set, those guys were full run it down, full slaughter anybody that stands in your way. And admittedly, those leads led themselves to the capability of sieging. Now, though, it's up to them. Ult used by Dardez in mid just to clear out some minions, which makes me think that we're probably not going to be seeing a whole lot of action from the Dragons, at least when it comes down to mid. Blue buff invade setup from the Ferryman over on right. Nika, unawares. Cyno is behind. Has game sense to recognize that this is definitely not a normal situation to be in, and now has some assistance. LASBRA, as well as Dardez, was in the neighborhood. LASBRA is just going to step up. Blue buff will stay on their side of the map, so the Dragons get their own, Ferrymen get their own, and we're still waiting for that first blood.
Yeah, it turns out when you're not in solo lane and you just run off into the jungle right when a blue buff spawns, and then you're not at the blue buff either, like, there's a reason Nika was suspicious. He's like, something's going on here. Like, I'm not sure if Cyno is also here, but you got to assume you're getting wrapped around on, or at the very least invaded. And that's exactly what happened. LASBRA shows up, just diffuses that situation pretty much immediately, which means that no buff invade will go the way of the Styx Ferrymen this time around. Speaking of invades, purple buff, once again, does not belong to CycloneSpin. Coast is going to climb higher and higher ahead XP-wise because Cyclone does not get his own buff. The purple has been consistently taken by Mike and Coast, and it's not like Cyno's been making the rotation over. He's sticking over on right, which I think is probably the right call. It's not like Aror and CycloneSpin want to fight too much, especially with Undying Love up, so you might as well stick with Raijin, who is ahead right now, right? Baskin's got the most farm on the map, as opposed to Cyclone, who is literally the least farmed by a wide margin, 400, 300 gold behind VaporishCoast. So yeah, I could see why Cyno is favoring Baskin over the Duho lane.
Yeah, and 2 levels down, maybe it helps if you come in and help him out to at least level that part out, but otherwise, like you said, yeah, give it all to Baskin. Try to find the Morgan Le Fay. But Charlie, it's been mostly farm games. Cyno might be looking to change that soon. Baskin goes up into the ult, gets some decent damage out there. One taunt at the end, lightning just a little short. And the autos afterward only finding damage. Now LASBRA comes in for the counter gank, has the damage, has the lockdown up into the bat out of hell, and one more swoop gets the kill. First blood to the Dragons.
You try and chase down there, but Cyno didn't have the range. Volcanic Lightning just couldn't connect with Nika, and because it couldn't, you don't get the slow, you don't get the follow-up damage, and of course LASBRA always had the ability to bat out of hell and just immune all that damage. That's the benefit of this Camazotz pick. You can get to 1 HP, but once you go up into the sky, no one can mess with you. And Cyno, unfortunately, can't trade with someone that's swooping and loses out on that first blood going towards LASBRA. And that's a great start for the Jade Dragons. You want LASBRA getting that first blood above anyone else because he is the one that will be facilitating the majority of the map this early on. No relics that are that important. Like, sure, getting beads off of Baskin is good, but it's not like he cares too much about CC anyways. We already talked about how, you know, Aegis is a pickup for a lot of these members on the Ferrymen and the Dragons because of the lack of CC. There's not much from a Camazotz I want to beat.
More you might want to Aegis, which explains some of the other choices. But now, I mean, look, bad out of hell. It feels like you've got the safety. So when we go back in time, I think Season 8 stands out in my mind here, but a lot of Warriors, but Camazotz I remember being a very distinct popular pick and was in that kind of position of being locked in because he's just so damn survivable. That dude can live through, it feels like, anything. And it feels like in this world where we've got mage solos, right? We're lacking warriors. Hell, we're starting to lack guardians. He's got a survivability most others don't have. Nika right now trying to make sure Baskin doesn't fear survival. And the dash, the jump, oh my god, the damage. They've got exactly what they need. They put Baskin in the ground, and it's 2 kills for the Dragons.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you see Baskin's ward, it's up top. It's not down below, right? He's warding from their blue buff, not his own blue buff, which means the second that LASBRA goes from behind, doesn't quite recognize what's going on. Nika gets some great setup, and the second Vampire Bats connects, you know Baskin is falling down there. So great setup from Nika, and maybe even, you know, relaying that information. Hey, he warded up top, he didn't ward down below, which means you can just, you know, wrap around from the bottom, and LASBRA has an easy gank to put both kills over towards the solo jungle. Seems like that's going to give Nika just a little bit of a lead. Remember, Baskin was top farming the map for quite some time, so that'll certainly help out the net worth charts. Yeah, now down 600 off of 2 kills. That is certainly not what you want to see if you're Baskin. You worked so hard to get that that gold lead up, and now 2 kills, 1 on Cyno, 1 on yourself. Just completely changes that gold lead in the enemy's favor.
Well, now LASBRA waiting in the blue buff. Maybe it's just going to be solo gank part 3, no? Tower's going to be there. Maybe does more to save Baskin than Baskin even realizes. 2 kills, 10 minutes in, and admittedly it's led to, what, 1,300, 1,400 gold. Slight favor of the Dragons. And Charlie, this goes back to what we were seeing really in Game 2, where the Dragons had an early lead and were able to push it to a certain extent, but it never truly felt like they were dominating the map the way that we saw the Ferrymen in their last win. And I think I'm actually thinking of Game 1, but it is something that I want to see more of, right? I want to see them take this lead and try to push it to the limit.
Would be ideal, and the time to do so in about a minute, right? Beacon spawning in, that is usually when the Jade Dragons or the Styx Ferrymen try to get active, and considering the Dragons have all the pressure in the world, that would be the time to do it, right? Group up towards this beacon, look for a fight, look for, you know, if Cyno steps out of position. But Cyno hits level 12 first before LASBRA. That XP is in his favor. He should be able to go back, pick up a beads or an Aegis, whatever he needs. Probably the beads, just because Morgan Le Fay is so annoying to dive. But that's going to help with the survivability around the beacon if the Jade Dragons want to fight, which I only see 2 Dragons currently, but they do have 30 seconds to group up towards that first beacon spawn, which can sometimes be a deciding factor on if you group or not. If you have the man advantage, right? If your team is in a position where they can rotate. Coast just went back to base. He picked up his 2nd relic. He's getting some itemization. Whereas CycloneSpin still in level 11. I mean, this beacon should be an easy grab for the Dragons, but they're not quite set up for it.
Instead, 2 seconds out. It looks like the Ferrymen are all on top of this. Dardez gets a nice meatball. There's only so much you can do. Half the beacon already over to the Ferrymen. Dardez is going to step up. Soon has PBM. You've got LASBRA in the right jungle. Just not much you can do about it. Beacon goes the way to the Ferrymen. Again, LASBRA's been lurking over on right. Seemed like maybe looking for some invade, maybe looking for pressure. Unable to really find any of it. Now Cyno and Cyclone might work together. There's a ward there from the Dragons and from Coast. So more than likely, we're just going to be looking at a shield buff in a second.
Seems like it. It doesn't seem like, you know, with double relics. Actually, the Aegis for Coast is down. Even so, Cyno hasn't been the one to try and initiate too much so far this game. Sitting at 0-1-0. There's 0 kills online for the Styx Ferrymen. I'm just wondering who opens the door then, right? Who gets Undying Love down? Who is starting off the fight if the Ferrymen are the ones who want to go for a pull, want to go for an aggressive play? They have done nothing aggressive so far, or they've just been sort of, you know, stepping forward to buffs that are invaded or showing face when necessary. But it's the Jade Dragons, and I want to see them go in for this Gold Fury. They have healing, they've got damage, they have XP. Just about everything you would want when it comes to pulling an early Gold Fury just to make sure. And Burst. Consider Burst as well. If you body block Paul's corpses, there's no way Earthshaker's getting outbursted. So they've got just about everything you could want with that turret. They haven't went for it. Doesn't seem like they're confident, or maybe they don't feel like they need to go for a pull.
Pyromancer started by the Ferryman. You got Cyno and Paul right here dealing the damage. Taking a little while to do so. LASBRA, Nika, Dardez, all able to respond. And so they're going to drop this one, Ferryman, back away. Dragons kind of match them in kind. I'm curious, though, Trelly, is it similar for the Ferryman now, considering that was the most aggressive play we've seen them make, to what you had said, I believe it was towards the start of game 1, where you were saying that Cyclones comms, whoever's comms, maybe all of them, were just kind of like, who cares, who cares, who cares, we've got a better late game, or are they kind of worrying now that we're approaching 15 minutes and they haven't gotten the ball rolling?
I mean, I wouldn't doubt that they are saying they have the better late game in their heads, but it's not like it's easy to deal with Aphrodite later on, especially with LASBRA, with his amount of safety, VaporishCoast on the Anhur. You know, Nika has been having a fantastic performance on a lot of these mage solos. Morgan Le Fay definitely one of them. So while you may have the confidence of your late game, I don't think it's the best idea just to rely on that and not fight for anything. You don't want to give up all this gold just because you value your late game so much, especially when you have the ability to fight. It's not like anyone is so far behind they are just useless. I mean, Paul's got the same build as Dardez despite being down a level. Itemization-wise, I'd say Cyno and LASBRA are just about even until that Heartseeker or Transcendence gets online for LASBRA, so you're okay fighting there. It's really just a full item that Nika has over Baskin, and I would assume that's just because he hasn't backed yet.
Pyromancer pulled this time by the Dragons. Nika is rotated over for it. You got 4 Dragons, only a few Ferrymen, and they don't seem to have the damage or the presence. So the Dragons get that plus a Runic Bomb to boot in their favor. Pull a gold lead a little more towards their side. We finally passed the 2,000 threshold, but Trelly, it has been a slow roll to get them there. And 15.5, 2,000 can still be relevant, but we are definitely feeling, I want to say, the pace of game, especially as we approach 20 minutes. Unless the Dragons pick up this Fury anytime soon, we might as well start calling it even.
I mean, you can feel the weight of this game, right? Ticket to Worlds on the line right here. You lose, you got to fight a little bit longer. You win, you don't have to think about it for months, or like a solid month and a half, right? That is very valuable. While we see CycloneSpin getting dope, doesn't even beads. He could have beads and attempted to ult, but he didn't think he could get out, so just holds his relics and goes down, gives another kill over to LASBRA.
And not only that, I mean, just gone. Same thing to the tower right afterward. Just gone. It opens up a little bit of presence on the map. Again, last time it was about 15 minutes in that we saw the first tower fall down. Once again, we're seeing a similar build out of Cyno. Gold Fury picked up, dropped by the Dragons. So you have presence from the Ferrymen. They still want to hang out. It's just whether or not they can find the fight. Got to be cautious. LASBRA 2-0-1. And you have Nika making the rotation. No CycloneSpin at the max.
Ferryman got it!
Ferrymen steal that one away. They get the gold. That one's going to get us right back to even. And with the beacon spawning in just a little bit, they might be able to polish off that lead with a little more.
Wow, Paul with the Undead Surge. That's one of the issues with trying to confirm with Vulcan. Sometimes your abilities just take a little bit to land. You got to make sure it is all on point at the same time. And Paul just barely sneaks in 168 damage, I believe. It was very low, just to make sure that steal goes through and keep the Ferryman in it. Gold-wise, now the beacon also going to be going the way. Spawning here shortly. I mean, this has just been the Ferrymen showing up and just going for it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you lose Cyclone, you lose your tower. No one was zoning. It seemed like the Jade Dragons were very confident that Dardez was just going to be able to confirm that. And they just walk in unpunished. Not like Paul had to use relics. It wasn't like Aror had to put himself out of position. They just walk up and take it.
That's the second time you said it. At least the first time when you talked about it, it was a Fire Giant. And at least Paul was playing Vulcan. So it's
Yeah,
like,
that made
yeah,
more
you know
sense.
what? He steals. Yeah, that happens if you don't zone the Vulcan. Honestly, even if you zone him to a certain distance, he's still got the shot. It makes a lot less sense when it's the Opwash who walks up.
And it wasn't even Corpse Explosion. It was just the one. Like, he didn't have to do the big burst part.
Yeah.
He just threw some dead guys out and said, go get it. And they're like, we got you. And that's what happens.
And you know what? That's the kind of leadership and really like determination that you need from your dead bodies. Like,
And
if
the
they're gonna be out
loyalty.
there-
Yeah, they said, we got you. There's going to be a lot of damage over there, but we don't care. We will confirm this Fury. Now the only issue for the Ferryman is, well, you know what? I was going to say, how do we get Cyclone online? But build-wise, he already has Fail Not. Coast goes into the Dominant, which has been his build path pretty consistently. Just means that Cyclone's got the crit chance already online, and he's only a level behind, so not the end of the world. Okay, call it a level and a half after that purple buff gets stolen. It's definitely not the end of the world, though. CycloneSpin has the DPS to say, hey, if we win a fight, I can burn through Fire Giant. Like, that is still a possibility. So, slowly but surely, the Jade Dragons are going to need to find an objective to force, a fight to force. And if it is Fire Giant, got to make sure that burst is on point.
Pyromancer's going to be coming back in a second. Mike and Dardez, Aror, and Cyno immediately spotted out in the area, but they're not going to go for it just yet. Feels like the pressure is going to shift over towards right, though, and I'm watching the carry specifically. CycloneSpin joins his teammates, and that should be the call. Pull the Pyromancer as much as you can. Half health already. Mike, Dardez, and Nika are in the area. They go on Baskin, cause a little bit of damage. But the Pyromancer goes this time to the Ferryman, and Cyclone picks up that Runic Bomb, so now one for each team. Maybe an engage here. It'd be late for the Dragons if they try for it, and like you said earlier, what's going to lead the fight is the big question. They don't seem to have an answer. Instead, fall back, put some pressure on mid.
Yeah, it's just too difficult to start an engagement like that. Aurora takes some poke, but he can just row on out of there. The Jade Dragons want something. It is off a Fire Giant fight that they are forcing. Grouped up around the objective, Mike yet to go for the pull. Finally, Dardez starts DPS. Mike is zone duty. Aurora, not a lot of HP, and Fire Giant's already getting low. Gotta keep your eyes on Dardez. He's the burst.
Gotta keep your eyes on the Fire Giant health bar. Aurora with the wave goes in, hits two. Nika is immune through the ult, tries to throw some damage out there, but eats more in the process. Has to fall back. Cyno leading the way. The charge is there, and the kill comes through. First one on the board for the Ferrymen, and they're looking for a little bit more. Baskin, Taiko drums, takes down Mike. LASBRA hung out to dry, has Bat Out of Hell. Should be safe. 2 kills for the Ferrymen. And an open FG pit.
And you are seeing the exact issue of this composition that I brought up earlier, right? Nika and Mike, they try to initiate the fight, they step forward. Aurora throws a wave at the team. Aegis comes through because, yeah, Dardez hit a big ultimate, but Aegis gets used. All the while, LASBRA's in the backline. He did nothing that fight. He just stood around, got revealed by Erendite, and said, hey guys, I can't do anything. There's no CC. Now Fire Giant gets started up. LASBRA still in the backline, has Bat Out of Hell, but do you go in for a steal or do you just try and zone? Seems like he's trying to pull the Ferryman away.
Well, Cyclone and Baskin left for a moment. DPS on the FG slowed down.
Dardez has ult.
It's a little over 1/3 of its health. Cyclone walks forward. Fire Giant dropped momentarily. Goes back in. Dardez ult back up. You have to be careful of the Vulcan. Health bars, precarious for the Ferryman. And they're going to stick to the FG. Stop DPS, go in for LASBRA. Bat Out of Hell used. He's going to get some swoops
Why did he
in.
get dropped?
Onto Baskin. Didn't get dropped. They go in. It's going down. Ferryman managed to secure that one, but they've lost 2 in the process. They take care of Dardez. Baskin tries to fight for his life. Dashes forward, looking for the kill. Can't find the last hit instead. Just goes down. A 3-man swing. The Dragons, they might lose the FG, but they come out on top in the fight.
Yeah, somehow in the middle of that scrap, Basket ends up stealing it over Dardez. At least the Vulcan goes down, but now you got Cyno and Aurora up to defend. It looks like the Jade Dragons aren't going to go in for a tier 2 tower. They're just going to head towards the Primal Fury, unless Aurora can go in for a steal, which He is very tanky. He shouldn't have to worry about dying here, and the River of Styx has a lot of CC. I wouldn't say this is a 0%er. He definitely has damage.
Well, the question is just, can you time it right? Throws it out
and
takes it away. Oh my God, Aror. And that one's got to be devastating. Things seem to be going so well for the Dragons after that. With the Fire Giant going to the Ferryman, now that Fury, Trelly, it's pretty much an even game again.
Okay, hold on. The Ferryman Paul steals gold.
Yep.
They just go over and grab Pyro despite being down.
Yep.
Baskin steals fire.
Yep.
And then Aror walks over and steals.
Yeah.
Where's the burst? The Jade Dragons just, I mean, they've got Vulcan. You know, it was like Dardez wasn't there, to be fair. That wasn't Dardez's fault. But still, they have like Impale. Surely that should have been able to do a bit more than Auror's damage. They need to work on that objective confirmation because they're just handing freebies to the Ferryman at this point. Like, just gimmies. Get back in the game. Here you go. You earned it. Or did you? I'm not really sure. Yeah, I mean, you got the steal, so clearly you earned it, but we did kind of give it to you at this point.
Left 2 open. You know, you can have a conversation about zoning, or as you have said, maybe a conversation about burst, ultimates, things like that. Maybe we'll see it again. Pyromancer spawns in. A lot of dragons on the right side of the map. Not quite pulling it. Going to be met in a 4v5. LASBRA's trailing a little behind. Titans as well, marching down mid. Going to give the team something else to rally behind beyond just the Pyromancer. They fought like this in Game 3. And it had some unfortunate scenarios. Fought like this several times. The Titans have been marching down mid. We'll see how it opens up. LASBRA caught out before he can go in. They have a little extra damage for the opening. Take him down to half. Force out the Undying Love from Mike. And put themselves in a position, the Ferryman that is, to start DPS on this Chaos Titan. Try to control the mid lane engagement. All 5 still good for the Dragons, and the healing from Aphrodite getting LASBRA back up topped off. But now, it's going to be the siege forward. Order Titan leading the way. Aror with the wave, and it's looking to collide into 2. Brings up a lot. Dardez tries to throw out the ult and create some separation, but it's the engage from the Ferryman. Baskin with a double leading the way in. Takes out 2 dragons in the blink of an eye.
They still have the Titan pushing forward, Gore. They have a tank and Fire Giant on Aror and Cyno. It doesn't seem like the Styx Ferrymen are stopping here. They want this Phoenix, and they've got the damage to do it. Coast dishing out some auto attacks, but this Phoenix is the target, and the Ferrymen want it dead.
Runic Bomb used. DPS still going to be good. You need a little more autos. Find it. They lose Cyno in the process. Should be back in time for the next Fire Giant. It is definitely going to be feeling that one. Jungler down. Phoenix exposed. And the Ferrymen decide to back away. 3,000 gold in their favor. Pyromancer waiting for him. Trelly, finally, the first true lead of the game.
I mean, what Baskin is doing here cannot be understated because that was a snowball effect to all degree, right? Baskin catches out LASBRA, forces him back. LASBRA has to beads, Mike has to Undying Love. What happens next? Aror sends a wave down Main Street. Dardez holds beads and Aegis, takes the wave, takes full damage towards it, and then uses beads and Aegis. Is there an Undying Love available? No, that was just used on LASBRA 15 seconds ago. Dardez, gone. Mike, gone. Then it's just Coast, LASBRA, and Nika to defend, and guess what? With the help of Titan, yeah, you're going to get the Tier 2, and you're going to get the Phoenix. All of that from Baskin just finding LASBRA and doing just a little bit of damage. Enough to force Undying Love. Notably, it didn't really seem like LASBRA was going to die. He had Bat Out of Hell. But Mike would rather use his ult than LASBRA use his, right? Like, oh, just Undying Love. Is it going to be that necessary? Turns out in this case, might have saved Dardez's life. But you just got to watch out from this damage from Raijin. I mean, if Baskin is able to dish out that much threat just from finding, you know, a jungler in the back line, what else is going to come from a Fire Giant fight now that someone's got to deal with fire waves?
Well, the minions helping you out. And the Fire Giant positioning Trelly, it's just so clean for them. The Dragons are going to have a very, very clean defense to stop the Ferryman here. And where's the engage? I mean, are they just waiting for a counter engage? Is that their only hope here around the FG?
I mean, the Ferrymen can play it smart and just push, right? And they know that there's fire waves in mid, so they don't have to go in for the Fire Giant. They don't need to necessarily make that play. But Dardez has no beats, no Aegis for 20 seconds. Sure, he's got alternate timeline, but you could certainly force a fight here if you're the Ferrymen, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're stepping up to a Tier 2 tower. They do have eyes on LASBRA. They know exactly where this Camazotz is because he stepped over a ward and is pushing mid-waves. But you can tell, Gore, the Ferrymen don't want to dance with Fire Giant. They know what Vulcan can do. They want to fight in the jungle. They want to force something, anything that is not a Fire Giant pull, but they don't have the option. The Dragons are giving them nothing to work with.
Making sure they play safe. And so far sound enough. It's just whether or not they want to step in, again, to participate in this Fire Giant. It's not going to be enhanced for another 2 minutes. So you maybe have some time to play with, or if you can force them to go for it early, your worst case scenario is maybe losing a couple towers. Maybe a Phoenix, considering there's still a Runic Bomb in pocket for CycloneSpin. Dragons with a little bit of poke back and forth. But Trelly, no true engage yet. And it feels like the Ferrymen have been the ones to really get to dictate the fight on their own terms.
I mean, no doubt. There hasn't been a fight that the Jade Dragons have started that has went well. They are able to find counter engage, they're able to find picks, but we talked about it from minute one. It's a kiss from Mike or a fear from Nika or LASBRA's blinking to the backline. None of those are great. Nika's definitely the best option, but it's so telegraphed. The Morgan Le Fay's fear is very easy. You can get hit by the first ability and like the first part of it and walk away and not get feared. And even that is not enough to engage a fight. The Jade Dragons really do have to all in. They only have one blink. They don't have sprint. They have to wait for the Ferrymen to mess up, and that's an unfortunate spot to be in 28 minutes into the game with the Phoenix down.
Well, the dance is still on. I feel, again, maybe a little awkward for the Dragons. You had mentioned it maybe if Nika had blink, maybe that could have been an opening, but started with Aegis, needed the beads. Not a lot of options there. Mid Phoenix is back up, which is going to be huge for the Dragons. Fire Giant hasn't even been looked at. 45 seconds and counting until it is enhanced. Might be what the teams are waiting for or what the Ferrymen are waiting for before they go for a true engage. Ults are up, Relics back up. Item-wise, I mean, outside of a couple of things, specifically looking at Coast, who's gone for a full 6th item as opposed to keeping his recipe for a little longer. Looking at mostly full builds. Pyro burned and easily secured by the Ferrymen, so it's just the setup. And really, it's waiting for the pressure to break through. It feels like the Ferrymen have control. It's just trying to figure out that key opening, especially in the jungle, to tear apart the Dragons, or vice versa for the Dragons to find that one key opening. But the longer they wait, the further ahead it feels the Ferrymen get. 5,000 gold, and it does not seem like there are a lot of options to fight back outside of just to fight for the Dragons.
And if you thought the engage was hard before, I got to highlight this again. I talked about it last game. Aror keeps going Relic Dagger and Bracer, which means he gets a Bracer on fire. He gets a Bracer behind, which CycloneSpin and Paul get to stand on. And then the Chester movement speed buff are all here. So they are just going from circle to circle like a Venn diagram. They are always faster than the Dragons. They have so many options. They've got vision. And they just get to keep waiting out those Bracer cooldowns. It's not as if the Styx Ferrymen, even if they get CC'd, it's going to be hard to chase them down. Cyno's got Erendite. He can just, illuminate everyone on the map. He's got that extra movement speed as well. I mean, again, this is a game where the Jade Dragons, I'm not going to say their hands are tied. They can certainly set up an ambush, but there's not much they can force here. They really do have to wait to see how the Styx Ferrymen want to play. They have to play reactive as opposed to just getting active.
They've still got 3 of their towers standing. Their mid Phoenix is back. Ferrymen also have 3 tower standings, just a different 3. But it has been this dance back and forth right now in the jungle. We're starting to see, I think, some massive power spikes. We talked at this point a while ago, it feels like, about the upgraded starters, but now we're seeing dominance instead of a recipe. Now you're seeing Mirrodin at the very end for the op wash. So it feels like the Ferrymen are coming into this a little bit stronger. Auror's going to set up and try and go in for the fight. Let's listen in with the Dragons. Let's react.
I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good. The dash in as well.
Current dash in.
I'm ultimate.
I'm dead.
Aegis.
I'm dead.
I'm fine as well.
As well, chill.
Nice.
Yo, that's everything.
That's
actually Aegis as well.
Exactly what you need to hear. That's everything. A, and B, you go 1 for 1. Jungle for support. Shelly, that just feels like such a great engage for the Dragons. So they still have to be cautious around the FG.
They certainly do. Dardez doesn't have the ultimate, though, so Burst could be in favor of the Ferrymen for the time being. If you want to go in for a 50-50 without Earthshaker, now's the time. Tycho Drum's still available. Baskin has that ultimate, and already Fire Giant's getting low.
It's halfway down already. Dardez does not have the ult, but does still have the burst. Where's the damage going to be? Paul's in a little bit of trouble. LASBRA tries to find him. Instead, finds Cyclone. Goes to the bat out of hell. Deletes the carry from the board. Now chases down Paul. Might give his life, but is looking for a little bit more. Needs the saving grace of his team, and has it for a mile. Opens up so much. Baskin, one straight hit from Nika. Great play by the Dragons. Saves the FG and gets him 4.
Yeah, I mean, Paul just takes way too much damage there. Of course, LASBRA's going to be able to cook up one. I'm surprised that he was able to kill not only Cyclone, but also dash through Paul. That was so much damage coming from this Camazotz, and now the Jade Dragons are in a commanding position to go in for this Fire Giant. It doesn't seem like Cyno or Aror want to go in for a steal attempt. They're just going to do speed buff. Enhanced Fire Giant on all 5, the Jade Dragons. That's what they were waiting for. Right? That was a fight that the Ferrymen started. They felt confident. It's a 4v4, and all they had to do was sit back and wait. The Fire Giant gets pulled, and of course the Jade Dragons are able to counter-engage. That was not a fight they started, but it was a fight they finished.
Now, Phoenix, Aror might be able to bully him a little bit. Depends on if he's willing to commit the ult, but this is going to go down no problem. It's the Titan that's the question. I can't believe this. The Dragons, they are walking forward. You've got respawns coming through. Paul, back up. The damage on the Titan is there. Can the Dragons do it? Can they push us to 5? No, they're falling apart at the seams. The damage, the defense. Paul Burger just does it better. They've got what they need. It's up to Dardez, but he's not there. The defense, the deicide, and the Ferrymen, they're going to run it down mid and go to World.
Gore, I cannot believe they even went for that play. They were all spawning in 3, 8, 4 seconds. All of them get up. Paul gets so much damage off, and Dardez saves the Aegis. One more backfire might have been able to kill that Titan, but you could see the Jade Dragons threw their hands up, and now the Styx Ferrymen, with Baskin clearing the minions, of course, because that Titan is very low, are able to step forward and play this one slow. Yeah, they've got 25 seconds, but of course that Titan's going to fall.
Yeah, at this point, it's just the ceremony. And what you're watching here is the actual ticket puncher going through the paper for the Ferrymen. They're going to be the first team that gets to go, and Trelly, guaranteed top 2 seed going into SWC. A massive win for them. And that defense, that end.
Yep.
Well, maybe not the end, the prior end from the Dragons is going to live rent-free in my mind for days.
I mean, and that's the thing. You know, I said I can't believe they went for it, but let's be honest, Gore. If they ended, I would have said, what a big brain play. That's crazy. So it was definitely a toss-up, but when you see 3 members of the Ferrymen spawning in single digits, that is a risky call to go for, especially with Worlds on the line.
Well, good news for the Dragons. That's not the end of their road. You'll see the bracket in a little bit, and you'll know not only where they're going, who they're going to be up against at this point, and what their path is going to be like. They still have to win 1, and they get to go there. But if you're the Ferrymen, you don't got to sweat it anymore, no qualifiers. You are going directly to the World Championship. And so that's, I mean, maybe not unexpected, right, first seed, but to see the Dragons, to give them some credit as well. This is maybe one of the hardest fights we've seen the Ferrymen have to go through to get here.
Yep.
But they take it 3-1. They're going to go to SWC. You've heard enough from myself and Trelly, though, and the desk will break that game down.
Styx Ferrymen headed to SWC in January, and after an energy-filled end there, an attempt from the Dragons to try and sneak one away, that Titan got pretty low, man. My heart was beaten. I was a little bit anxious there. But the Styx Ferrymen, they find success on the defense, all 5 members, and they push it up. They end the game. They're headed to Worlds.
That is such a close end. It got so low, down to triple digits maybe. And if you look at it, like, those type of ends, you'll just think back to, like, maybe if I did this instead, maybe I did this instead. But that is such a close call. I'm actually glad they went for it. I didn't think they had it, and I think one thing here, one thing there. We're talking about a completely different end of this game. We're talking about Game 5. Unfortunately, not happening, not enough damage. And then the Ferrymen come back in this game, and even that previous fight, it was kind of all Dragons. They wipe at the Fire Giant, and maybe if they played a little bit slower and they opt for the next fight, but you got to live with the decisions you make.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely wanted to push it down. You have the momentum there in that moment. It's hard to not follow that call, right? I mean, you see a low Titan, especially that was how they won in the 26 minutes in game number 3. You're really trying to push to a game number 5. But I mean, you see some of the clips here. The Ferrymen felt like they were winning a lot of those fights in the mid game. They got that first Fire Giant. This is the play, though. You can see how low that Titan gets. A triple kill for Paul. And the alternate timeline almost comes through and lets Dardez do it. It's on a razor's edge to push us to a game 5 there. But I mean, for all that, right, the Jade Dragons, they still felt out of control for most of that game. They tried to steal it away in the end there, but the Styx Ferrymen still felt like it was in their hands for most of that one.
Yeah, I mean, that was a close game either way. I think that last fight went Dragons, but you're absolutely right. Previously, I think, slight favor to the Ferrymen, even if they were down in kills, they were out farming. So I think they were comfortable going beyond this game, beyond that fight, that they were comfortable that they were going to be able to win. So maybe that is just like a momentum call that the Dragons had to make to try to go for that end because they just didn't feel too confident for the rest of the game. But
Perhaps.
Either way, just seeing that again, that Titan was a sliver.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you could say triple digits. That might have been like double digits low.
Yeah, no, that was pretty close. The Styx Ferrymen, they ultimately take it. They are headed to the World Championship. I want to hear from the winners themselves. We've got Aror standing by with Gore for an interview.
That's right, I got Aror standing by. And up front, I got to ask, you're going back to the SMITE World Championship. How does it feel?
Feels really good. I mean, it's an honor to play like as long as I have, and I'm just happy. It's fun. It's going to be fun. I'm excited.
Now, me and you were just talking about it, and we saw it again, and it's going to replay in my head over and over again. That defense at the end. It feels like we're going to Game 5 about 3 seconds before you guys actually secure yourselves the victory. What are the comms like? Like, what's that moment like for y'all?
Everybody was just calling to kill Anhur and Vulcan, basically, and we killed him. And then Paul called, he's in timeline, and then we turned on him and taunted him so he couldn't use anything, and then we won, so it was good.
And you were saying like 649 was what it was flashing up for you or something around there?
I think it was 640. It was like either 629 or like 649 HP. It was so one Vulcan ability probably kills it. So
a narrow margin. You guys managed to secure that. There are a couple of moments though in this set, especially in the first game we see it go 50 minutes. So what are your thoughts on things like especially looking towards first seed tomorrow when you're trying to fight that, as well as like opponents you might face? What are some things that you learned maybe today after the Dragons put on an impressive showing?
Wait, do we play tomorrow or do we play on Sunday?
Sunday. You're right.
Okay, sorry.
That's my bad.
I was confused for a second. I think we played pretty like sloppy. I feel like, especially game 1. I think we have a ton of experience, and we played off that in the first game. Game 2 was probably our best game of the set. We did really well. Game 3, I feel like it should have went the same way as game 2, but we were just indecisive on some things. We made too many people made calls at the same time, and we kind of made us indecisive. But we didn't really clean it up in game 4 either, but we won, so that's all that matters.
There you go. That's all that matters. Congrats, man. You're going to Worlds. We'll see you Sunday for the finals of this, but congratulations on the win. We'll go back to the desk.
You can hear the energy there from Aror. Excited to be going back to Worlds. Maybe, identifying a little bit of sloppiness. Could have come out, could have 3-0'd. Of course, I think they wish they would have, but there's a lot of time between now and Worlds to clean that stuff up.
Yeah, there's a little bit of time. You have some time to scrim, fix up some of those mistakes. And they talked about game 2 or game 3 could have gone exactly like game 2, so that's something they can always think about and acknowledge.
Well, we are not done with matches for today. Don't worry if you're the Dragons, you still have one more chance to make it to Worlds. They're going to face off against, I believe, the Camelot Kings tomorrow to start the day. And so we'll see the Dragons again tomorrow with another shot. But the remainder of the day, we got another big one on our hands. Oni Warriors versus the Atlantis Leviathans. And another one. The winner of this match will punch their ticket to the World Championships. Any early predictions here inbound?
Whoever drafts better is going to win. Because I think these teams are so close, I can't even say until I see how they're drafting. Fine, I'll say it. I'll say Levi's.
You say Levi's.
Say
Levi's over the Oni Warriors. Here's my prediction. Ready for this? You got to brace yourself. My prediction is that the winner of this set will go to the World Championships.
You heard him here. Good job, Frog.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Pretty heavy prediction there. Oni Warriors versus the Atlantis Leviathans. Sure to be a good matchup. Remember, we saw the Atlantis Leviathans yesterday match up against their opponent. They took down that win, so they're coming off a little bit of momentum. We'll get to see that matchup, though, after a quick break. Stick around for some more action.